Tell me where do I go? Tell me where do I take us? Your heart is starting to...
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Aegis Champions League. We are coming at you with week number 6, our penultimate week of the regular season, where we've got a matchup with unexpected playoffs implications. Cincinnati Fear taking on Gang 7. Listen, a lot of folks are going to be rolling their eyes at this matchup a little bit, TDS, but G7, they've put up a good fight against some of the other highly ranked teams in this group. Cincinnati Fear have been dropping some unexpected matches. This is going to have huge implications for who actually makes it out of the Zon group.
Exactly. It's actually not as clear cut for Fear as maybe it was looking at from the start of the split. Obviously, they are 3-2, so it's not like they are at risk of imminently missing playoffs. They still need to win a couple of games, but they probably will be able to try and secure it. The biggest surprise is how they are dropping games, I would say. And the thing is, they lost the games to the two teams above them, but they've also lost games to other teams that are quite close in terms of the power against them. So I'm kind of interested in seeing if it's going to be possible for Gang 7 to actually get a victory against Fear, and if that happens, how does playoffs look, or how does the race for playoffs in this group look after that? Because it's 3-2 for Fear, it's 2-3 for Gang 7, and then the other matchup that we haven't that we were kind of hyping up as well from this group, CCG Futures against St. Clair Saints, which has 2-3 for St. Clair and 1-3 for CCG Futures. Depending on how that matchup goes, we may have a pretty tight playoffs race for the last two spots, maybe just the last spot, but it's looking quite nice in this group for those last spots.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's really where the closest race here in the ACL for playoffs is. Coming into week 7, we'll see exactly what things look like, but don't be surprised if we end up back here in Zon in week number 7, because I think that's really where stuff remains to be shaken out. The upset win that G7 had over St. Clair back in week number 4 really throws a bit of a wrench into this group, because now G7 beats St. Clair. St. Clair is going to play CCG Futures tonight. If St. Clair win that game, then we end up with this circular matchup between all three of those teams who are all kind of contending for that 4th place spot to make it out of the groups. I think it's pretty safe to assume Gentle Hearts Gaming and Clown Gaming, they're undefeated. They're going to be making it out. I don't think there's anything that could happen at this point short of the teams disbanding to end up not making it to the ACL playoffs. Cincinnati Fear, they're a little bit more borderline, but we have enough faith in the roster that they're going to be able to make it. It's these three that are really kind of all fighting it out for that 4th spot. And, based on current records and who they've managed to beat before, G7 has to be in that conversation.
Exactly. There's potential for this to actually come through. It would still be an upset because we value Fear a bit more than other teams. Name value is pretty important here, and also the roster that they are bringing tonight, quite star-studded, but they still are human. They are still players that can commit mistakes here and there, and in a matchup like this where the stakes are to a certain degree high enough, you may just be pressured, and Gang 7 may find the surprising upset victory and throw a wrench into this group. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I want to believe, but I'm not going to be that big of a coper compared to what I have said about NA teams in World so far. So I'll just wait and see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I mean, one more weight to add on to the already little uneven scale here for Cincinnati Fear is the reveal tonight that they will be bringing in an E-sub. It is Philip in the top lane.
Wow.
So, yeah, this is looking a hell of a lot like the top 4 NACL Cincinnati Fear, and a little bit less like the Aegis Champions League Fear that have dropped a couple of games already. I don't know how much Philip's been practicing with the squad lately, but 4 out of 5 of a preset NACL team who has a whole bunch of experience together and has made a deep run is definitely a dangerous squad to be facing up against. Meanwhile, in G7, we have Steel City Warrior, Ben Guy, Tricky, Hope, and Phantom Star. Steel City Warrior and Tricky are listed as the opposite positions on the roster sheet, but so far it has been Steel City going top and Tricky going mid throughout all of their ACL games.
Maybe it was all in preparation for today's matchup, where now they finally go back to the original positions that are listed on the
Facts.
dock, and that way they try and surprise Fear out of nowhere and take the victory through that. But looking at players here that I would try and keep my eye on in terms of what I want to see from from Gang 7 to try and actually carry the game out, I would say Hope. Like, to me, he's one of the 80 carries that I would say goes under the radar quite a bit, but he is quite consistent in terms of damage dealing, and he's one of the better ones in terms of not having like the biggest name value, but being quite serviceable and able to carry himself out in a lot of team situations. So I would hope to see, pun intended, Gang 7 try and focus down there on the bot lane and put pressure on your AD carry to try and carry out the game.
Yeah, for sure. Now, some other questions that you do have to wonder here. Okay, I got one answer because I see Shochi in the lobby and I see ZZ Legendary in the lobby. It's technically all we knew coming in to make this sheet was that Philip had been approved as an E-sub. We didn't know for who. So there was a world where this was going to be Philip top and then Toasty mid instead of Shochi. It does look like it is going to be Shochi. The other thing we weren't sure of is who they were going to be running at support, because they've run both ZZ Legendary, former Dignitas Challengers coach, and they've run Dapchin as recently as last week in their matchup up against Gentle Hearts. Looks like it will be ZZ Legendary today, as I also see him in the lobby. So that's a little bit of a puzzle that we've now managed to answer for ourselves. The other thing to keep in mind is going to be that there are ban penalties for this e-substitution. So Philip coming on in at the last minute, not having previously been listed on the roster, means that there will be a 2-ban penalty for every game that they use Philip. Based on what I saw, at least earlier today, I didn't see any word about that ban being waived or that penalty being waived. And if it's not going to be waived, then that should, in fact, give a little bit of a bone back over to the side of G7. We'll have to see if they can get some clever draft strategies using that 2-ban loss per usage to see if they can eke themselves out an edge.
Trying to get any sort of edge against a team that, technically speaking, is better than you just off of name value and off of play value probably is going to be really ideal. And in this current meta, where there's a couple of champions that are actually quite strong, talking about the Orianas, the Syndras of the world, there's other champions that you can try and bring into the mix. So trying to have that sort of advantage over the enemy team may end up turning ideal. And as we see with the start of the ban phase, it's looking like it's going to be the first 2 bans wait from Fear, because they are actually not even hovering anything. I think it's going to be first 2 bans not going to be selected by them yet.
Yep. So they do lose their first 2 bans. We'll see what the ending impact of that is going to be. And then we are in the new patch this week. We are on 13.21. That means Jinx has been nerfed a little bit, so maybe that champion not going to be quite as massive on the list as it was previously. We'll just keep our eyes open for what other new up-and-coming champs might rear their heads. This is going to be one of the first competitive matches played on 13.21. I mean, we haven't, it's not like there's a lot of leagues that run between Wednesday and Friday. So, I mean, we're the first, baby. Sure. So let's see what exactly is going to work on out. I know Winthrop played CCG yesterday in a rescheduled match. So I guess they were really probably the first ones, but we're a very close second.
I don't remember seeing it, so I'll take it as nobody playing in another patch until I actually see it happen. And it's going to be us for me. So hopefully we get to see a lot of new things, and that's going to be also the newer K'Sante, right? The changes coming through, the different playstyle that maybe he's building now, and I'm quite interested in seeing how it's going to perform, as well as because we are going to see it on the hands of Philip. One of the players that I feel like was on the better side of the K'Sante when looking at NACL performances, right? He was one of the better performers with the K'Sante. So hopeful to see how he performs with the champion, and maybe we get to see a bit more with the combos and how he tends to execute now compared to before. As well as on the other side, Jinx and Rakan, a really good combo, consistent with their damage, consistent with their value, and if you reach the 3-item mark, Hope will get a good opportunity to try and carry out. And this is playing towards what we were saying before draft started, right? Give Hope the resources and he can try and carry it out, and I think Jinx is one of the better champions for that.
Absolutely, and this is the not only the reworked K'Sante, but the buffed K'Sante on 13.21. So that is completely broken from what I understand. My only experience with it has been that clip on Reddit of Yankos just absolutely losing his mind over it. It's been hotfix nerfed a little bit. The bonus health required to decrease your minimum cast time was bumped up, so a little bit of a nerf coming through there, but not a huge one. And now we are going to see those two big champions from the prior patch, Jinx and Orianna, still coming through. I don't think the Orianna's been nerfed at all yet since her World's form, and then the Jinx just a little bit tapped down from where she was last patch, but still clearly a very high priority for both of those teams. And that's going to be that focus towards hope that you were talking about, TDS. They really want to prioritize getting a powerful pick early on, and they get that in the form of the Jinx right now, as the Jax is locked in for Fear, and they're hovering the Syndra as a counter pick for Shochi, but Shochi's got a deep champion pool. They might save that for the second phase and try to get themselves a more favorable bot lane matchup.
The particular thing with leaving for Shochi's counter pick, which I do agree, he does have a good enough champion pool to try and play that out. But if you're looking for the stronger champions to try and face Orianna, right, the other one would be Syndra in that sense, and you're giving the opportunity to get it banned away. So probably a bit risky, but I can see why you could try and approach that, especially with Shochi on your side. And then now with Emilio being the last pick here, coming for the first round of picks, I'm not against it actually. I think the Emilio certainly was brought down quite a lot in terms of the power level, but having Enchanter pairing with the Jinx is almost always ideal, and he's a champion that I think right now could fit in a really niche spot in the meta, especially if there's going to be any sort of engaged champions coming through from the side of Fear, apart from maybe the K'Sante. So having something extra could work out really, really well in that sense. And now talking briefly about the K'Sante Jax picks here that are coming for Fear, I'm kind of interested if this is Fear saying we will play the K'Sante in the mid lane instead of the top lane and send the Jax for Philip. That could also be a play here, and maybe they are trying to bait out a couple of bans that end up not mattering at all, although they are focusing on the support pool a bit more.
That could very possibly be the case. Yeah, I just checked. The Jinx nerfs are just a cap on 5 stacks of Get Excited. That's the only thing they did to her. So,
great.
Yeah, she's still... We're going to get a lot of Jinx picks over the next couple of weeks. I'll promise you all that. Caitlyn, going to be attempting to be that lane counter, as they are going to ban away that Lux, the all-too-present Caitlyn duo. There's definitely going to be some other options left, though, for what you can end up pairing on up with that pick. I'm going to be curious to see what comes on through the Melio, one that would have been on my short list, but of course that's going to get paired up with the Jinx. We do look to ban away the Malphite and the Sejuani, just some of those safe tanky options for Fear. They want to limit what Bengai can go for. His Maokai is still up though, yeah, and that's been a big pick for him probably for over a season now. I mean, at least all season long. I can think of a lot of Bengai Maokai games. So he's going to lock that in. He's going to be pretty happy that he can get that one on R4.
Well, Maokai is one of those champions that has not left since he came back into the meta, so not surprised to see him coming through. The press the go button for himself is really, really nice, and trying to have that tank to peel around and initiate something for your team is almost always ideal. Has the ball carrying potential as well for the Orianna, so you can pair it up quite nicely in a lot of situations there. On the other side though, with supports getting banned away, this would be one of the better ones to try and put lane pressure, but maybe not the most ideal in terms of trying to set up for the Caitlyn. And now with the Rumble, I think there's going to be the Jax in the jungle, and this is Rumble top, K'Sante mid.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I mean, the other
maybe Rumble jungle.
Yeah, I think this is Rumble jungle for Perry. That would be my guess.
Could be.
This isn't something that Cincinnati Fear has played. Ironically enough, it is something that G7 has played. They did give Bengai a Rumble jungle game pretty recently. That would be my assumption, and then I think it's K'Sante mid, Jax top. That's my guess. And then the Gnar lock-in for G7. This makes 8 Gnar games this split for Steel City Warrior in the top lane. I don't even know why you save it for R5, man. He plays it.
Yeah.
He plays it every game. He's played it. I believe this is his 6th Gnar game in a row.
That's a lot of Gnar games, in my opinion. Probably not needed at all. I'm guessing the only reason why it's picked R5, it's because you want to prioritize the other champions. Like, I understand picking the Jinx and the Orianna first. I understand picking the Maokai first. Maybe the only one that I don't understand picking first is the Emilio. But then again, you may think it's going to get banned. So after that, I understand why it's coming R5, just because the other champions probably take priority over yours. But yeah, I would rather see a counter in this kind of situation. Although maybe he's thinking that he doesn't know who he's going to play against anyway. So he's just going to opt into comfort because he has absolutely no information who's going top lane.
Absolutely true. So yeah, he's gonna have to make some guesses here. I mean, clearly the rate that he's been locking in this Gnar means that he feels comfortable with it in a lot of matchups. Steel Seed Warrior also like a big multi-role guy. Like he won a Risen Divine League title last split playing AD carry. So maybe it doesn't. In some cases that makes you have a super deep champion pool. Maybe it also means that your role, your pool in an individual role ends up being a little bit more limited. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know this is his 6th Gnar game in a row. So do with that information what you will. As we're going to get under the in-client draft. They are going to use some dummy bans here over on the side of Cincy Fear. So that's going to throw off Duan's stats. I'm sure he's going to be plenty happy about that one. We look to lock in our actual allocations of these champions and find out where Fear is going to be sending some of these picks for sure.
And it's going to be interesting seeing where they end up laying themselves. The only one that it's kind of sure where they're going, it's the Caitlyn Karma, unless they go with a pretty big shenanigans with the Karma as well and they try to play it up in another lane. But Caitlyn Karma feels like the only consistent one, and then after that you can really try and set yourself up in a lot of ways. But I feel like Santa mid lane makes the most sense because he's the one that will probably have a pretty controlled time in the mid lane. Like, he's going to get pushed, but it's not weird for Santa mid lane for that to happen to the Santa mid lane. So that probably makes it a much better matchup. And then the Rumble now being put into the top lane may end up signaling that it's going to be the Jax in the jungle. Yep.
All right. So it's going to be Jax for Perry. That's a spicy one for me. I actually really like that for him. I would have been happy with either of these selections for Perry. Don't get me wrong. I do wonder if this is a flex determined by the Gnar pick, right? If it had been something else, if it had been an Ornn, if it had been, you know, like a Malphite or something. Well, Malphite, I think that makes you even more want the Rumble. But if it had been like an Ornn or something, I wonder if we might have seen Jax top and Rumble in the jungle. We'll have to see the rest of the series if that ends up becoming relevant and how many places they're willing to flex these picks around. But regardless, I'm happy to see Perry on a carry jungler. Spoiler alert for folks here, but we recorded a 2.5-hour podcast last night talking about NACL prospects that we expect to potentially move up to the LCS. And one of the things that came up was that Perry is a super young player with a pretty varied champion pool, but this last split especially, it feels like he was a victim of the tank meta, right? He played a lot of Sejuani, played a lot of Maokai, didn't get a lot of the diversity and a lot of the carry flashy picks in there. I'm excited to see him on the Jax in this game to see what he can get done on a pick with a little bit more autonomy.
Yeah, a champion that we don't typically get to see that much in the jungle in the top lane tends to perform quite well, especially against Santa, ironically, does perform quite well. So it's going to be interesting seeing how Perry performs in it. One of the big question marks, though, that I do have this time around with Perry taking the Jax into the jungle, not like he cannot perform with it, but he's going to take a while before we see him being able to have a huge amount of impact, since you probably want to try and farm up until you're first or second component with the Jax, or try and get a full item as soon as possible. I would put a similarity towards Viego in terms of how I expect to see this Jax played, because you want to be the carry, but you don't want to be the one that initializes any play or anything like that. Like, you want to play off of your team making the plays around you and you being able to close out on certain kills and trying to get the game going for you in that sense. So hope that we get an opportunity to see Perry playing like that, and if that's the case, my eyes are completely on Shochi, because he's going to be the playmaker in this game. He has to force the plays by himself. He has to make some things happen around Perry to try and put him in a carry spot, and if that's the case, how much impact will he have in the game?
That is going to be the question on what is going to happen to him in the early game, especially when we look at somebody like Ben Guy on his Maokai. He is an early game menace on this pick. He wants to be ganking lanes early on. He wants to get a advantage for some of his laners here, and he's got laners that are well equipped to do that, right? The Jinx Melio going to get pushed in by the Caitlyn Karma in the early game, you got to believe, but that's going to give opportunities for ganks over to this Maokai. And similarly with the Gnar in the top lane up against this Rumble, he's going to end up naturally pushing the wave unless you are really tight on your Rumble mechanics, right? You only use the Flame Spitter exactly when necessary. You don't overheat at the wrong time, so deal too much damage to the minion wave. If that's not all rock solid, you're going to end up pushing the wave, and you're going to end up making yourself vulnerable to a potential Rumble gank or to a potential Maokai gank. on the Rumble. So definitely something to be on the lookout for here for G7 is what are they going to be able to get done while Perry is trying to farm up on the Jax and maybe not quite at his strongest position.
Well, one of the things that we may see from Gang 7 is actually not trying to do much, right? Like, yes, you may get pushed consistently by the Rumble and comparatively on the other side of the map by the Caitlyn Karma as well. But as long as you reach that power point where you get 2.5 items on the Jinx, 2.5 items on the Orianna, your team fighting becomes that much better. And I think that may be something G7 tries to look into instead of trying to be proactively answer to what Fear does. They are more playing the winning game, farming up, and if they see any opportunity, play around that. But not actually trying consistently contest to Fear's plan, because I do think that early on, it's going to be really difficult to stop some of these lanes from pushing you, and it's going to be really difficult to also get an opportunity to look into these lanes because of how little engaged there is besides the Maokai. Like, when you look at the rest of the champions, none has their own CC apart from the Maokai. The Gnar maybe at level 6, and then you have to be really good at hitting skill shots with the Milio, but that is not really a source of CC to try and play around with. So the main one is going to be the Maokai. If you don't have any other setup apart from the Maokai, can you really make a play happen in any of these lanes? And I feel like the answer is going to be no. Or no at the very least until level 6 or 7, when you can actually follow up on it with damage.
Yeah, definitely going to be the case here. And then the Cassante versus Orianna matchup as well in the mid lane, an interesting one to be on the lookout for. We've seen a lot of folks, especially at Worlds, willing to pick the Cassante mid into some of these mages and rely on your tankiness to be able to navigate that melee versus ranged matchup. But going to be very interesting to see if that exactly is going to pay off here. And as we're finishing off our tick down into game, I do want to take a second to shout out Coachify, the sponsor here for the Aegis Champions League. Coachify is a commission-free esports coaching platform currently in open beta. You can become a coach today. You can track your students, inspire them to succeed, and turn your passion into a career. Click on the panel located down below the stream in the Twitch description and check out their website for some more information. Thank you again to Coachify for sponsoring the Aegis Champions League. As I'm hearing some Rift sounds in the background, and we might just be a couple more seconds away from getting in to game number 1 between Cincinnati Fear and G7.
And that's the hope to getting immediately into the game, although we've had our times where we get baited by the sounds and then pause immediately. So hopefully that's not the case here, but as soon as we get into the game, we can see a bit of the attempts from either of these teams. One thing I will say, Gordo, that I'm kind of disappointed we haven't seen much all throughout the ACL season is the lack of level 1s. Like, I feel like so far we've had 2 or 3 that I think have been really consistent, and then the rest are kind of carbon copy of each other, trying to maybe do a lead push, ward inside of the jungle, and then get vision through that. And I would have loved to see more out of teams in general in those level 1s, because I feel like it's such an unexplored territory for a lot of teams in general.
Agreed. Not seen too much of those level 1s. Maybe that will change with this game. As let's get on to the Rift for game number 1. Cincinnati Fear versus G7 in a best of 3, starting right now for the future of the Zon group.
Okay, as I was saying, perfect. I love when teams do this, because now it actually makes me think that they actually prefer something in level 1, and it's Shochi maybe baiting a bit on the side to know who's there, trying to maybe get the attention away from the entrance, and now trying to collapse onto hope that was perceptive enough of the potential invade coming through.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not the most dangerous level 1 champion to see walking up to you is the Jax, right? You need 2 skills to CC people. If you don't have the leap strike, you're not going to close the distance without flash, and if you don't have the counter strike, you're not actually representing any CC threat, as we are going to get that little post-pause freeze that is such a big part of Season 13 League of Legends.
Been such a big part of ACL, I think, since the start of our ACL careers, pretty much, Gerda. I remember a pause in each of the splits, and I wouldn't want it any other way, because we're going to keep seeing more of that. Also, Phantom Star, the biggest winner out of that invade, hit twice Shochi, so he got, I think, 40 gold out of just that initial attack. So already Phantom Star, the richest champion in the game.
Huge. Absolutely massive. So we'll see
Difference maker.
What he's going to be able to do. You know, I'm not one to complain on broadcasts too much, but I love that these team name things appear in custom games, because that's going to make it real confusing, especially for somebody like WE Hope, who now has 2 different team names in their summoner name. That's going to be real cool, but we'll keep up with it. We got these guys down pat. So the laning phase is going to get off to an early start, and that's a huge Peacemaker, not going through the minions at all, chunking Phantom Star out pretty low.
That's already a pretty big trade, and this is the power from the Caitlyn Karma. They may not have the typical setup that you like to see from a Caitlyn to try and lay your traps down, but you have the damage and the poke really early on to just mess up with everyone and anything. Really good poke down there already. I also wanted to quickly just mention a little bit of information regarding that. Funnily enough, both of the teams that Hope actually play professionally, WE and JDG in the LPL.
True. So little throwback there, really fully embracing a good friend from China there, Hope, as North American Hope going to be facing down a tough matchup here between Manui and ZZ Legendary. Manui on the Caitlyn, definitely going to be a fun one to track throughout this game. I feel like he's a player that I mostly think of the non-traditional bot laners, the mage bot laners, especially the Seraphine, the Ziggs, played a little Karthus bot, stuff like that, but definitely still a threat to be contended with. Is an attempted dive from Philip. He's looking for the solo first blood. He's gonna get it, and he gets out alive. Are you kidding me, Philip?
Well, that's a way to introduce yourself to the ACL public, and also to the people that maybe don't remember Philip. Already starting off with one of the champions that has been the main focus in Worlds. The Rumble with the Ignite just solo dives the Gnar, and when you're main Gnar, yes, you may be able to have the range to try and farm away from the Rumble, but when you're under turret as mini Gnar, you're going to succumb to the pressure and the damage, and that's exactly what happens there from Philip. Really well done, really nice kill, and already starting the onslaught from Fear in a really effective manner. As Perry. Okay.
Very willing to fight with Bengai over this first Scuttle Crab here, and even though it is early game Jax, he is going to be able to brawl in that one-on-one pretty effectively, and he's going to push back that Maokai and secure himself that Scuttle Crab, as he's still got a whole top side of camps to farm on up, and gonna be feeling pretty good there. As Tricky has chunked Shochi out very low. He's out of mana, but the Clockwork Windup is not
he had the mana now.
Almost a solo kill. Shochi pushes Tricky underneath the turret, but Tricky will pick up the solo kill and get out to safety. But now a follow-through gank on Steel City Warrior is going to get Philip his second kill. But Bengai makes an appearance in the bot lane to punish Manui. G7, they get 2 on opposite sides of the map.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm not against what G7 did just now. They find a kill on the bot lane that was quite pressured and also blow the flash off of Minui. So already answering really well onto one of the most difficult places. They live up Gnar on the other side of the map though, so that may become a bit of a problem later on. But as of now, you want to put pressure onto Hope, give him resources, and they are doing just that. And then in the mid lane, huge props to Tricky. I think Shochi not respecting not only the fact that the Orianna does a lot of damage, but I think the mana value that the Orianna was getting, especially with the level up, I think she leveled up in that play, and that's why at the end she gets enough mana, but not 100% sure. At the end though, doesn't respect that, ends up getting soul killed, and with no flash, it's really easy for the Orianna to persecute you.
Yeah, we had a little too much to talk about, but really well played by Tricky there to end up coming out with the solo kill. Shochi tries to put out some fancy plays to turn it back around, but this is why Orianna, one of the best mages to have into these melee matchups, because you get to stack up the Clockwork Windup, and it's almost like an additional spell after you've pumped it out enough times.
It's a lot of damage that people don't typically tend to try and play around with, and even though Orianna has been a while since she has been seen in the meta, I would say it's still a champion that you consistently know can find value and can turn around a lot of the situations. So Shochi already playing the prize, and Tricky trying to put himself as well in a potential to carry the game. As Steel City Warrior maybe dived, probably dived.
Really well placed equalizer there from Philip is going to secure the kill onto Steel City Warrior, and now it's 3-0 for the Cincy Fear top laner. Playing with a little bit of fire here, taking up the minions. He gets executed.
Well, he got the soul kill and he didn't die to the Gnar, to the turret or to the Gnar. So I would say it's fine. It's a quicker way to go back to base since he doesn't have teleport.
I suppose. I don't think that means it was intentional. I think he would have preferred to get all the gold from that minion wave and then recall normally, but he is coming back on out now, and he will be rocking the Hextech alternator and some sorcerer's shoes to make him just a little bit stronger. As ooh, Perry finding the jump onto Ben guy, getting a lot of damage off early on, but this 3-on-3
wait, the re-engage.
good for Hope and Phantom Star. ZZ Legendary lands the CC. Perry actually manages to turn it back around.
Wait, not again.
Guy. Philip is getting another solo kill. We know how this one's ending as we pop back down to the bottom lane, and Hope dodges out on a Peacemaker in order to get himself out to safety. It's a 2-for-0 cross map for Cincinnati Fear.
Why does the camera hate Steel City Warrior that much? Like, we don't need to go back to top lane and see the Nord die once again. We know what's going to happen. He was going to get roasted, but we don't need to actually see it happening live. At the same time, with the bot lane play, really good response by Fear, and really weird there. Bangai re-engaging after finally leaving. Perry engages on him. He is able to disengage, and then he, for some reason, re-engages and allows for Perry to flash on top of him, get the kill, and allow for these Jacks to continue spiraling really strongly. Like, we're talking a lot about Philip, and deservedly so. He's doing really well up there in the top lane, but Perry is 1-0-2 as a Jax really early on. That's so much value for the Jax, and that means that you're going to have a secondary carry threat to worry about in the later stages of the game.
Yeah, going to be a very dangerous duo here. A lot of lockdown on top of this Rumble is going to make things very threatening, especially with some relatively immobile carries like Hope and Tricky. You're not getting resets for Hope. If you're not able to sprint away from the fights, you may very well find yourself getting cooked by that equalizer. As the Legendary clears out some vision, backs away, knows to respect the Melio Jinx duo.
And talking about the potential equalizer finding a lot of value, we have to see now in those potential fights around Herald, around Dragon, how much value is Philip going to be able to find in those plays, and also how the setup is going to work around it. Because once again, we were talking about the lack of CC maybe on the side of G7, that it was going to be mainly on Bangai, but technically speaking, it's also going to be a factor for the side of Fear. There's no one to really pair it up with the equalizer apart from the Jax engaging in with the Counter-Strike, and if you don't get that down, then it's kind of easy to play around that equalizer to a certain degree.
It is, yeah. If they can get their fight setups done very well, then they can try to mitigate what this Rumble is going to be able to dish out. He does have at least a little bit of a cap to how much he is going to be able to get done, but that's a nice snare found there by ZZ Legendary. Manui going to take full advantage for a fat trade on a Phantom Star now that Melio not going to feel safe being in lane anymore, going to have to go for the recall, and that's just in time for the Dragon to get started up. Ben Guy is here, Tricky is here,
staying
going to be
there.
down Emilio unless things go very differently. It's a nice throw down of the equalizer in the top lane. Philip going to dissuage that invade from Steel City Warrior, or that engage rather.
Ignite is close to being back up again, Gordo, so you know what that means. Potential dive onto Steel City Warrior unless he runs away or he's able to survive long enough with the Mega Gnar. Oh, the engage?
Nature's Grasp cut off the rest of the team. Perry taking a lot of damage as the Twisting Advance goes through. Nice capture there from the side of
Wait, what?
the Cassante, but it's not going to be enough to save him as Manui now up in the front line dishing out these shots, knows that nobody can deal enough damage away. Tricky has to survive these dragon shots, will get away. Hope is trying to kite, but Shochi is all over Hope. Will get pushed back eventually as the zap is just a little bit too much damage, and you don't want to walk back into that Orianna. Steel City Warrior with the TP flank gets his first hyper proc. He's going to be able to stick to these guys. He's just got to worry about the damage. Doesn't look like he's willing to chase it any further, though. Cincinnati Fear, they stay grouped together, they stay threatening, and they protect each other to get out.
And that's the sort of play that we may see eventually in the future as well, coming through with the teleport advantage from Steel City Warrior. He probably can come into the plays like that, but as we see in the replay, it's all on Perry committing here, and then Bangai engaging with the ultimate, trying to separate between both the Caitlyn, the Karma, and then the Jax as well. Perry engages by himself completely here, so really no one there to actually help them out. Gets killed quite easily there by Tricky, and then Bangai able to flash away and almost escape there in that situation. Good thing it's the Karma collects the kill, but this is where things become quite messy. Tricky almost dying to the Dragon on the side, them trying to persecute Hope, but the Ghost helping out so much, trying to protect them as much as possible.
No.
Nard probably dying again, yep.
Oh no, that one's not Gnar though. That one's tricky.
Oh, yeah.
And now the pain is starting to spread around the map. You go for the lane swap. Now you're dooming another solo laner to have to play up against this Fed Rumble. And Philip just continues to reap the rewards. He's getting full value from these kills now. It's not the nerfed Nargold who's 0-4.
Yeah, the pixels were making me go blurry, Gordo, and I wasn't able to really catch it, although playing the bot lane.
Nature's
with
grab going
flash.
to land on a both. Not a successful block there from ZZ Legendary. Manui wanders too far to the right, and that means Manui is going down. Hope picks up that kill. Now 2-0 on the Jinx, and this is the hope for G7 to play through.
That is the best possible attempt that they can go for, and it's working out so far with Hope getting those kills and the attention down there in the bot lane. Will it continue working?
Shochi.
Probably. And Shochi,
All right, he does CC immune through the shockwave, but takes a lot of damage for it. But this might be a bait. He gets the kidnap backwards, and now there's backup coming in from two angles. Shochi picks up the kill onto Tricky.
I'm never doubting Shochi again. That was such a smooth play. Ignoring the shockwave into baiting Tricky into such a bad spot and getting the setup for the kill. Really well done. Santa things, and at the end gets another really good kill. Entering as well onto the plates in the mid lane, onto the plates on the bot lane, because they were losing a lot of gold to Hope. But now at the very least, they were able to equal out some of it thanks to the mid lane plates. Well, look at it once again. Like, it was looking really, really weird from Shochi, but he's a mastermind. We simply don't get him.
Yeah. He just dodges the ultimate entirely, too. That wasn't the CC immune. He just skirts out of the way.
The immune comes here.
That means he still has, the dash back in. Great play here by Shochi all around. Just deftly avoiding that ultimate.
So well done, so well played, and this is why we tend to hype Shochi so much. He may have those weird moments at one point, but later on he just finds a really good play that nobody's expecting to see coming through, and he finds a game-winning play through that. It is not game-winning, but it's still quite smooth.
For sure here. Now, Tricky going to have to play a little bit more conservatively, you got to think. You know, felt like he had a great angle into Shochi there, but ended up baiting himself. Just have to treat dude potential as a real thing there, right? You don't see the members of Cincinnati fear. You got to assume that they're going to be there. As Ben Guy's stuck in the equalizer, he's just going to burn down. Great positioning there from Philip.
And the saddest part there for Bengai is that there was no hope for the 3. Like technically speaking, he was dead either way, because if he goes back onto the other side of the equalizer, then Philip just throws flamethrower and burns him alive. Like, legitimately, there's no better play there. Oh, the back play.
Flashback in there from Perry, but the first kill's found for Hope. He's real quick now. Can kite out this Jax. Just wants to try to protect Phantom Star. Not going to be able to do that as Perry picks up the kill. But a 1-for-1 in the bot lane with another kill going over to your Jinx. I think G7's pretty okay with that.
Yeah, it could be much worse. They actually get a kill back for Hope. He has to use both summoners, but it's way more worth it than just giving up everything. And Shockwave, Wade, Shochi.
One more clockwork wind up the shield, keeping him alive. Turn around, but is eventually going to be able to pick up the kill. 1-for-1 trade. Tricky eventually works his way through that slippery Cassante health bar, but he will go down to Perry.
And it's going to be first sword blood for Perry. Perry still is getting every bit of gold everywhere he can. Like, even if someone dies, he's the one that is getting the extra gold, the remaining gold, and that's just putting the Jax into such a good spot. Already has the completed mythic, probably looking at a potential second item really soon. And in that case, now you have the pairing of both the Rumble and Jax jumping on top of your Jinx. Are you going to be able to protect her? That's the real question here. Oh, wait. Karma.
And a lot of collapse coming through on a ZZ Legendary. He is not long for this world, and Hope is going to be able to pick up the kill. And now the follow-up CC on a Manui. Manui drops 2. Both kills into Hope's pocket. He's 5-0 on the Jinx, and they're marching up towards the Rift Herald. They're going to be able to pick this up, and the objective bounty that spawned on it.
Exactly. As soon as they saw the potential play into the Karma, it was dead for CZ Legendary. And it also made it so that Philip had to run away from the Herald. They had complete control of the Herald, as well as having Philip pushing. But because of the Karma and the Caitlyn dying there, you pretty much have to give complete control. You have to look for another play. And Shochi luckily collects the gold down there in the bot side, so that means that you're getting more value even if you end up losing the Herald, because it's second Rift Herald. but it's not the best possible trade that you would have loved to have as Fear. As we get the platings gold as well, 1.4k, we know why. Plates in the mid lane, plates in the top lane, even plates in the bot lane thanks to Caitlyn existing. So really nice amount of gold that they are able to get. And another turret.
Yeah, Shochi's still the big force to be looking at here. All these kills and the hope. You can have all of the kills, all of the hope in the world. But if you get stuck on top of an equalizer, you are just going to burn down, especially with how much money and AP Philip's been able to acquire. So gonna come down to execution on these fights for certain. Of course, you have Phantom Star there with that cleanse. That's going to make a big difference to be able to bail out this Jinx.
Yeah, there's still a good opportunity for them to try and keep the Jinx as alive as possible, but I'm more on your side, Gordo, here. Even though I think that giving those 5 kills to Hope is amazing, any fight that you're, not even just the equalizer, if the Jax gets on top of you, you're probably dead. If the K'Sante gets on top of you, there's a really good chance you're dead. And that's the scary part about going against the Fear roster at this point. It's that there's way too many threats, and it's kind of difficult to stop every one of them. Also, Caitlyn taking way too much damage in the mid lane.
Yeah, pushed back there is Manui once again. Just gotta respect the extra damage output that comes from that cozy campfire, the extra range for Hope, firing off a couple of rockets, getting a couple of burns, and gonna be able to take him down off of that. ZZ Legendary looking for an engage off the Shirelias. Here comes Parry. They're gonna throw down the equalizer. Breath of Life comes through to allow Hope to kite on out, and Hope is untouched so far, but not able to pump out enough damage to really be a threat to Parry. Here's the flank coming out. He kidnaps Hope over the wall, and Hope is shut down as the dive back in from Parry is now free of threat, and he takes down Bengai. That's 2 targets already, but now Shochi maybe up a little bit too far. Is Tricky going to look to shockwave him back in, and Steel City Warrior looking for the hyper rock. He's got to run through Manui to get there, and it's going to be forced to flash back over the wall. Philip now kited back from Tricky, and G7 are going to successfully disengage the rest, but Cincinnati Fear, they got the prime target, and they win the fight.
But see, that's pretty much what we were talking about before when talking about how Hope has to play this. Yes, he was 5-0 before that death, but there's way too many threats at this point in the game that can actually destroy him. And here, when we look at the repetition of the play, Hope trying to escape as much as possible. Parry coming on the side, plus the equalizer slow, everything trying to stop him. There's no flash, so he has to fend for himself in a lot of these situations. And when he decides to come back in because they think the re-engage can happen, then Shochi comes in with ultimate. It's not going to get stopped, and now you're dead because there's no tools, there's nothing else to try and stop them, and there's no one to protect you. It's really easy to collapse on the Jinx at this point with no flash especially, and if the team is not ready to kill that target immediately, or at the very least ready to get something back when Hope ends up dying, then it's going to be really difficult to stop that from happening. And Nar died? Wade?
Yeah, Steel City Warrior got roasted by Philip somewhere in there, and now Hope getting roasted much the same. Manui looking for that final couple of shots to take him down. Will be able to escape for now, but Hope forced back away from the wave once again. It's such threat here. Philip just standing here, far away from his team, 3 people right in front of him, and he just does not care.
Philip was actually playing just for the poke there on the side to see if he can get some more damage onto multiple members. But even in that play, you're forced to use heal on the Milio. Now you're 1 summoner down, even if it's not the summoners from the Jinx, you're still losing summoners. Even if you don't want to. And Shochi also collects another turret. So the way that Fear is playing this out is that even if they don't get the kill, they are doing enough damage that they can try and get something else in the map. Be it an objective or more pushing power or more gold by stealing camps as well. There's always something that they are getting.
Absolutely, and that's resulted in them having a little bit over a 6k gold lead now. They're very much in control over this game, and the threat is still going to be on Hope, but it's so hard to put together these kinds of fights with the constant flanking threats coming in from this top trio. Tricky. Really starting to struggle in this lane up against Shochi now. The damage has become pretty impossible to actually dish out with that Force of Nature completed. And he is just swallowing the damage from the orb.
Oh wait, Parry engaging, looking to try and fight onto this Maokai, has to flash. That's too much invested, I think, though, from the side of Fear, right? Like, yes, you may have used ultimate from the Maokai, but that's a flash down now for the Jax. Going to be a bit more difficult to try and get on top of the Jinx without that flash on your side.
Yeah, definitely seems like Fear feel like they're just at a point where they'll take any fight they can get. They can do no wrong. They're so far ahead. They feel confident in their ability to play out these fights. But yeah, you do have to do a little bit of thinking about exactly which fights you're going to take and whether they're actually going to result in you being able to pick up the kills that you want. So going to be without that flash for a little bit. We'll see if it ends up making a difference. Is Tricky, at least with the Leandries, is slowly starting to chip away at the health bar of Shochi, but you can see it's going to be a very long job, and the wave is going to be constantly up on his side of the map.
If I trust a mage to try and run down someone, it's going to be 100% the Orianna. Like, she can try and just melt you down slowly but surely, and it's going to be really difficult to try and get on top of her, especially with a phase rush. That being said, what Shochi is doing is really difficult to stop because you have to either await the ultimate coming through, and on the side,
laners, and now Hope's just on the wrong side of dodge. He's got a flashback away, pumping damage back into Shochi, but again, he's just so tanky. Ben Guy is now going to be the target as he tries to kite back away, throws down the dangerous grasp. It's a nice execute on a Shochi, found by the Super Mega Death Rocket, and now Parry incredibly low as well, burning down. Could take one last tick of damage as the dive in from Ben Guy. He's willing to give up his life to keep this fight going as he ticks down to the ignite. Will he die? He will not. He gets away with the same sliver that Parry did, and all in all, Shochi the only one who's fallen down, but Manui gets slowed once again. Here comes the chain slow. Here comes the kill as Hope burns him down with the rockets, and now has free fire and 2 stacks of Get Excited to burn through the turrets.
And one more, they actually have the potential now to look for the Baron buff. Parry is alive and he can try to contest this, and there's teleport on Shochi as well, but it's looking like maybe they could have tried and go for the play, especially with the Get Excited. It's not going to be the Baron call. They are going to go back, utilize the gold that they just got, and try and be strong enough for the next fight as well, the one coming in the Dragon. But what a great way to answer from the side of G7, and not only that, the side of Fear not really respecting the power from G7. They tried to collapse into Hope. I respect that. I think that's a smart plan. But then the overcommitment to try and go and kill a Maokai, especially when they don't know what the rest of the team is, and when they already committed quite a lot to try and kill the previous members, Shochi was led by himself.
And cutting off Philip here. This is going to be a shockwave. Nice flash from Philip to buy the space, but he's overheated now. He's going to try to scoot away with that rocket belt, but the follow-up damage is coming on through. Tricky manages to avoid the equalizer and will pick up the shutdown. Now it's a Baron angle for Gang 7 CES, and we have to accept the fact that G7 have fought their way back into this game. They've got a real shot here as 4 approach.
Yeah, but they did utilize 2 ultimates that are really, really important for the team fight. Maybe this is the opportunity for Fear to actually look into a really, really good fight. Oh, Shochi has to be careful.
Yeah, already used the CC immunity. That means he's going to get pushed into the wall by the Gnar. Maybe not the most efficient Gnar, though, as Steel City Warrior transforms back. Tricky, low on HP, but the damage is still coming in from Hope. He's buffed up by the Cozy Campfire. Parry's in the pit. Not going to be able to fight it down. Ben Guy takes it out, but he is going to be able to pick up Steel City Warrior. Jumps over the wall to avoid the Super Mega Death Rocket, as Hope is still pumping damage into Shochi, but can't finish him off fast enough. That is going to be G7 with the Baron, but not much else.
And even though the Ghost gives him a really good opportunity to try and run around certain opponents, it does take away from the potential for Shochi to try and make the playmaking. In that particular instance, Shochi still has ultimate. Could have flashed in, pushed away the Maokai, and allowed Parry to get a good opportunity to try and steal this. But here we see the play. Great teleport flying onto the pink ward. People don't typically check them out. Philip does a really good job to escape this, but he was going to still get run down, especially with the bar so high up for the Rumble. It's really difficult to answer this, and I love the idea to go for the Baron buff, especially because there was really no way to actually try and contest this. Once again, there's no true CC on the side of Fear apart from Shochi engaging or Parry jumping in way too aggressively, and it almost can work out, but they don't really find a lot of opportunities to make the most out of that.
Yeah. I mean, I like how Shochi played this fight a lot, actually. He's kind of just single-handedly preventing Hope from popping off on everybody, but that's not enough in and of itself, right? Without Philip there, they just don't have the damage to take these fights, and they're going to get forced back. It's exactly what we find is now the siege happening on the top side. Shochi chunked out below half HP. Hope raining through this damage with the Hurricane now completed is going to be able to get excited. And this is the worst time to be up here fighting Hope as ZZ Legendary takes a bunch of damage from the excited Jinx. Look for Philip on the flank.
That's way too much damage. It's a 3-item Jinx with an Enchanter support. This is where the magic can happen. And particularly and importantly, there's no bad build coming in from Hope. Compared to a certain AD carry that we saw today at Worlds that I'm still salty about because I wanted them to win. This is an actually good build for the Jinx. This is going to do damage, and we're seeing that against Shochi, which has armor, but that's not enough to stop the amount of damage that the Jinx will be dealing right now. You have to be really precise about how you take fights as Fear. But I do want to mention quickly though, they did take the third dragon, the soul point on their side, and it's going to be a mountain soul. If they are able to get that soul, against Hope, this game probably could be one of the best opportunities to try and win the game.
Absolutely. The soul going to be something to pay very close attention to. That's their reward for having dominated through the bot side. At least push-wise through so much of this early game, even though Hope well and truly ahead in gold over Manui. Fear have at least been able to convert this into dragons, and yeah, catching out on that soul going to be such an important part of this for them as they're looking to race down mid lane. Tricky maybe up a little bit too far. Has to look to speed himself out of there, but will lose his turret.
It's gonna be 1-for-1 in terms of turrets because they gave up the turret in the bot lane, plus maybe another one, and they are getting the one. They got the one in the mid lane. Not a bad trade, but now they are also going to lose another one to Hope, and it's more so I feel like for Fear here, opening up the map as much as possible, not so much trying to contest in gold, but trying to make the space as broader as they can, because that way they can try and look for certain flanks, for certain deep vision wards that can try and set you up for victory in the game.
Yeah, good shockwave for wave clear there from Tricky. Does prevent anything else from actually going down, and now very well set up here. RG7, they are in the gold lead for the first time this game. Have made up a huge deficit that they had earlier on, and with this Jinx as strong as she is, it could be anybody's game at this point. It's going to be all about how the fights play out.
It really is. It really feels like it's going to turn out like that, and now we're reaching the point where even though Fear started out really well and they had the Jarvan and the Rumble and the Jax in such a great spot, there's the point of the game where it's much more survivable for the Jinx, not only because of herself but also because the items on the rest of the members are up there to follow her up. Oh, Perry on the side.
Going in for the flank. Hope is going to be target once again. Has the campfire on top of him, though. They're looking to burn down Perry. Super Mega Death Rocket takes him down to about a quarter as Hope is looking for these last shots, but Manui taking a couple of his own to try to chunk out Hope.
Oh, so scary.
All of the shielding, the warm hugs, the command protect, keep Hope safe, and maybe make the difference between him living and dying. Here's more shields, more heals, more bailouts coming through from the team to make sure that Hope doesn't drop, but playing with fire there as Philip nearly burns him down.
Hope a bit too scary there, going as far forward as the Jinx can, but also taking a bit too much damage after that play, forcing out the play from the side of G7, have to go away as much as they could. And in the meanwhile, Shochi was pushing top lane, so he was able to collect another turret for the team, more gold on their side, and maybe for the dragon fight in 30 seconds. That's where they try and make the team fight happen. No important summoners down for the side of Fear. Ultimates are all going to be back up for this next fight, and it's important to see how they try and control the area around this dragon.
15 seconds to go. Philip still without ultimate. Manui the same. They are going to be able to pick up this Rift Scuttler, and they're just going to force the engage on a Perry right here. They think he's up too far. They're going to try to lock him down with an Nature's Grasp, but he's going to flash away in time. It's Shochi now. Is the new front line. He rolls back in Phantom Star. He's all over. Nobody can protect Hope from Shochi. And Shochi picks up the 1-versus-5 kill on the crucial carry and is going to buy as much time as he can, but he's going to drop much the same as his jungler. The 4-man squad of G7, they will successfully stop the soul point by killing the jungler and taking the fight.
And there was never an opportunity to actually see Equalizer or Philly being able to fight this out. Shochi finds an amazing play onto Hope, but Tricky able to also deal as much damage as possible on the Orianna. And this all starts with a great commitment there by Benny. They know that if they kill the Jax immediately, the dragon is not only theirs, but there's a good chance they can win the fight. But Shochi played this beautifully with the initial engage, getting not only the turnaround onto Hope, but also forcing himself onto them and being able to kill Hope thanks to that. But because he committed so heavily, that means that it's really easy to turn around. Look at live though. There's Baron setup going through and half health already.
Yeah, Baron down to half. Philip is hanging around. He does have the equalizer this time. Ben Guy taking it up. That's a shockwave onto 2. Gnar back into the team. Manui and ZZ Legendary are down. G7 find another crucial pick. This is going to be Baron for them.
I'm really glad that Orianna is carrying this game out with the shockwaves, because I still cannot believe that people are willing to give her up just like that. Like legitimately just saying. But Orianna there with a huge shockwave, no flash for Minui, no flash for the Karma. That means that it's going to be quite easy to lock them down. But it's not only the flash, it's also the slow that will come here from the W. QW into ultimate. It's just really easy to get everything down on top of the Caitlyn, and she cannot escape. She doesn't have dashes, she doesn't have flashes. She's just a standing AD carry that cannot escape and will end up dying. That's Baron buff going for G7, and maybe the potential push to try and close it out with a Jinx with 4 items.
And also great timing with the Gnar transform there as well. Like Steel City Warrior transforms right as the shockwave comes out, catches Fear with their pants down, and they end up dropping this Baron buff. Now it's a goal lead for G7, not an insignificant one either. Perry is looking for Steel City, but he's going to be able to buy that distance. It's a 4-man squad pushing on the bottom side. Steel City going to be a little bit cut off here and going to be shifting back to Mini. I think Shochi sees an opportunity to try to take a fight off of that. He's looking on the flank.
About this, though.
Kind of far away. They're going to pull the trigger here for G7, and Shochi's kind of just left out to dry. He's going to go down here.
He's dead. He was completely by his lonesome there, and Steel City may be able to escape.
Yes, Steel City maybe taking some notes out of Shochi's book there. Both teams going to lose their bruiser.
But they're going to lose turret here, though. They don't have ways to protect this. There's no equalizer either. Hope will get excited, and now Minui has to run for his life as well. It's too much shielding.
Careful here without the Cassante. Nobody can really frontline up against Hope. They might just look to close it out right here. He keeps stacking up excitement off the Nexus turrets. Excited Jinx. Hope is just soloing out Legendary. The shockwave onto Philip is going to take him down. Philip going to be the next target. It's all on Manui. 1 versus 4, but look at the attack speed from this Jinx. Hope has successfully carried the game, and G7 are going to take down Cincinnati Fear in game number 1.
And let it be known that Fear, even in blue side, cannot win against G7's Hope on the Jinx. That was such a good performance by the AD carry, and this is something we talked in draft. Give resources to the AD carry, and guess what he's going to do? Carry, because he is really good at doing that precisely. Great performance by Hope and by the team that were supporting around him. We reached the point where it was a 4-item Jinx, and then you have the Milio and the Orianna just popping out shields and heals for this Jinx to just go crazy in fights, and it was quite easy for Hope to be able to carry out after that. But huge props to G7, huge props to how they played this game out, and now it's on Fear to try and turn around the situation, because now they are on the back foot.
They absolutely are, and Cincinnati Fear now going to have to come back in 2 games in a row if they want to start taking out G7. These teams very close to each other in the group, 3-2 for Fear, 2-3 for G7. This upset win would be massive for G7 to really start to push themselves into the playoffs conversation. Everybody fighting for top 4 here. We've got about 6 different candidates in the Zon group that could try to get up there. And this not only pushes G7 further up if they're going to be able to close this one out, pushes Cincinnati Fear kind of down.
It's a bit scary, and it's propping up the situation we were saying before the games even started, Gordo, right? The fact that if G7 loses here, then the group becomes way closer, especially if CCG Futures wins against St. Clair next this week as well. It just makes everything be a bit closer for that 3rd, 4th spot. And Fear no longer have that safety that maybe they can reach playoffs even if they lose out here. Like, they actually need to win today if they want to have 100% confidence that they can secure playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely agree here. And the threat to Cincinnati Fear is apparent, right? They've already dropped games to Clown Gaming. They dropped to Gentle Hearts, dropping to G7 here. And then they have a not a easy win matchup next week up against St. Clair. Stuff can start to get really dangerous for Cincinnati Fear. They have got to clean this one up and try to fight back in this series. It's starting to get very relevant for their future in this league.
And it's quite nice to see that even a team that was as hyped as Fear coming in to the league will have troubles against some of these teams. Will have problems just being able to destroy them. So I'm excited to see how this is going to end. Maybe Fear turns around, or maybe G7 ends up securing the victory and the 2-0 in one of our maybe biggest upsets, just considering based off name value and how we were expecting a lot of things. And if that happens, I would be even more excited for next week. But we still have a game 2 and potentially game 3.
For sure, cannot write these things into stone just yet. There is some more gameplay left to be played. This is a best of 3, so we're going to throw it to a quick break while we get into draft for game number 2, but we're going to be right back as these two teams take themselves on once again.
Come so far, another step to rid the pain. Go and be counted till your last day, 'cause only nightmares break their face. So stand upon these fallen lands and follow in our Father's plans. Yeah, until
back, everybody, to the Aegis Champions League, where G7 with a big upset win in game number 1 off the back of Hope's Jinx. But I think that's the big back-breaking factor here, TDS. So the question is, how are you going to stop the Jinx from coming on through this time? Are you going to ban it away? Are you going to try to pick it for yourself on the blue side? And how else does this affect how the rest of this game is going to play out? Because you got to remember, Fear, they only got 1 ban.
True, it's not easy when you are on the back foot in a series and you know that you don't have a lot of bans to try and counter it. And this is why I was saying, we were talking about this in the previous game as well. Yes, it's not impossible to play with that, but taking away bans in a meta where there's currently quite a good amount of strong champions that you want to try and ban away, it's not the most ideal. So now that you've lost against the Jinx, that you've lost against this Orianna, and I would even say the Orianna was to a certain degree just as problematic as the Jinx. Maybe not in the damage department directly or in the kill department, but it was more so in the zoning department. Like, there was opportunities where Fear were essentially completely zoned because the Orianna ball was in the perfect spot, and we're denying so much value because of the shockwave potential there. So that's just such a big issue that you have to worry about, and maybe something that Fear are looking to trying to get. But yeah, the Jinx, the easiest fix possible, and also one of the champions that probably can destroy the K'Sante even if it's picked on the other side. So not a bad choice to go here. And G7, what adaptation do they go for? The Orianna would be a fine initial pick into that, but what do they have to go against the Jinx now on their side? Could be the Saya, maybe.
Yeah, big pick here for sorry, not for Philip, for Manui. I'd be very surprised if Philip took the Jinx to top lane. Big pick here for Manui
Maybe.
on what he is going to be able to do on this really coveted pick on the current patch. It does mean that it's an opportunity here for Tricky to take his Orianna back. And last game was all about Hope. I'm not going to lie about it, but I think Tricky had a very solid performance on that Orianna, right? Had some very close plays up against Shochi there. Had a huge shockwave for that double pick that led to the Baron towards the end of the game. This is somebody to keep an eye on as, you know, one of the kind of newcomers to the scene here. Not a lot of history, at least in the NA amateur scene, from Tricky here. So pretty exciting stuff to see him and his rise in this league so far.
Also the solo kill onto Shochi, so he has quite a good amount of backup after that previous game. And not gonna lie, he's playing Orianna. I will say he is playing one of the strongest current champions in the meta, so to a certain degree have to cut some slack for Shochi, but there's still credit to Tricky for how he's playing this and being able to find so much value as the 6 gets selected. And this is going to be a mid lane 6, because I'm pretty sure you don't want to play the mid lane Jinx. Well, Shochi is capable of playing anything, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be the mid lane 6, and this changes the dynamic a bit more, especially if this Nautilus comes through. Because with this now, you're playing with the point-and-click ultimate onto one and mobile target in the form of the Orianna, and then you have Super Mega Death Rocket and Inferno Bomb, Mega Inferno Bomb. Two ultimates that can blow out champions immediately if you're able to get lockdown for it. So I would be quite excited to see how they go for that. I think the Sivir is probably the better choice. Twitch is hyper, it's more hyped, but Sivir is safer.
I'm kind of surprised that the Sivir ends up being picked over the Twitch, just because Twitch has been a big pick for Hope historically. Yeah. He plays a lot in solo queue. He's gotten banned a lot against in this league. He tanked 6 Twitch bans, hasn't got to play any Twitch games yet. Mostly been playing the Kai'Sa. This time around, he is going to be piloting that Sivir as his Jinx has been taken away, but still going to be in that same kind of hyper carry department. Paired up this time with Phantom Star's Rakan, who's going to be looking to try to find those engages. The Rumble now going to be banned away. They are not going to want to replay that matchup up against Philip, and looking for the Renekton ban as well. I'm going to be honest, TDS. Do we just see Steel City Warrior go back to the Gnar again? Didn't have the best time in lane, but it's been clearly a champion that he wants to be focusing on, and they found some solid fights with it in the later game.
I'm kind of thinking that it's going to happen once again. I would believe Fear wants to ban away the Maokai. Yeah, that's probably the better choice in terms of who you want to ban between the two. That probably means that G7 goes for Sejuani, since she has a similar approach to the Maokai. The other one that we could see that I would love to see, that we saw today in Worlds as well, would be the Wukong. Wukong Rakan, really effective into reaching backlines, to win mobile carries in the form of the Jinx 6. Really good to try and kill them as soon as possible, and it takes away from the threat, and I think as a jungler, quite effective in the current meta. Would be really interesting to see G7 go for it. And if not, they can just straight take the Gnar here. Absolutely.
Is Kennen now going to be the lock-in that is likely going to be going top lane. So a move from one Yordle to the other. The Gnar abandoned, going to be in favor of the Kennen, very likely for Steel City Warrior up in the top lane. What are Cincy Fear going to want to go for here? They get the counter pick into the Kennen, and they have to take themselves a jungler as well. The Olaf from Philip would certainly be something very scary.
He's been listening a lot to the Gods video, it seems like, or watching a lot of Adam at Worlds with taking the Olaf here, and I'm not against it completely. Like, it is a range versus melee matchup, but you're not going to be stunned by neither the Rakan, the Kennen, and now the Wukong as well, potentially, if it goes through. And you provide a melee lane for the Sejuani to try and lock down targets really easily. And I think based on the previous game, if they play similar to what they did with Philip, the Olaf may end up being a bit more of a dangerous factor in that sense, because there's no CC to stop him, and they also are able to lock that, to kill the Sivir even through the spell shield. So could be a much dangerous game for the side of Fear as they lock down the Wukong, and I'm really glad they went for the Wukong Rakan combo as well as the Kennen. It's quite strong.
Absolutely is. But I mean, this is a great Wombo combo team comp that G7 had brought together. But the Olaf is really what I got to focus on, though, just because it's going to immune so much of what this comp is looking to do, right? I mean, it's great in the one-on-one up against Kennen because you get to just run through slicing Maelstrom. But it's pretty good against all these champions for very similar reasons. You can't get charmed by the Rakan, can't get knocked up. But, you know, make your pick, right? You can't get knocked up by Shockwave, by Grand Entrance, by Cyclone, by whatever you want to pick. And that's going to be really valuable against this kind of composition, especially when he's here kind of buying space, juking around, and going to be looking to clean up targets that perhaps get poked down by the Jinx and Ziggs.
Maybe the main thing that can try and play around this Olaf will be the on the hunt, trying to give you enough movement speed to kite him out when the Ragnarok is down, so that you can try and just play out the duration and then play the team fight. But like you're mentioning, this Olaf is going to be the main wildcard in this game. And also, I want to reiterate it because I do think that combo may be dangerous, particularly when looking at the Orianna. It's R from the Nautilus, you knock her up, and then you follow up with Mega Inferno Bomb and Super Mega Death Rocket. Those three abilities can destroy the Orianna immediately, and if you take out the Orianna, which I think it's the biggest team fighting pressure potential in the game, then the Olaf can run amok in the backline and try and destroy everyone through the Ragnarok. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how Fear will play this out, and if they are able to get their team fight or the team composition idea out in the game.
Very curious for the same. It's tough to put together and execute on these really straightforward team fight compositions against teams that are really well coordinated and are really kind of going for these pokey, flanky kind of strategies that it feels like Fear have drafted for themselves. But they got a fair bit of hard engage as well with the Sejuani and with the Nautilus, so it'd be interesting to see what they find. I mean, they played for topside a lot in game number 1, and it got Philip a huge lead, but it didn't really ended up paying off in those team fights. They couldn't really execute on the full-on 5-on-5s the way they would have liked to. G7 doubling down on that to try to focus all in on 5v5s for this game number 2.
And I think I do like that from G7, though. The fact that they are going to be consistent in their game plan. They saw how they won the previous game, and they are going to stay true to that in this game. It's team fighting, strong late game carries in the mid lane and in the bot lane, and then trying to play through that later on. One of the main worries that I will say I have, though, it's the lack of tanks this game. They don't have the Mega Gnar that does work really well as tank, and they don't have the Maokai that was building more towards that tanky side than the AP damage side. So in that sense, if you misplay in any of the fights, your champions can be blown out of the game really easily, and then the team fight becomes way too chaotic. So you need to be able to play really effectively, really well, and also protecting Cope as much as possible. Don't allow the Sivir to be locked into a really bad spot and dying.
Oh, looks like we've restarted draft down here. That's a little bit... Oh, well, we're going to be restarting the in-client draft, but that's fine. We know where everybody's going to be going. We'll get the runes here before too long, as got a little bit of extra time now to talk about these compositions, and really going to be curious to see how things go through the bot lane, especially for Cincinnati Fear, right? Like, they were able to get the priority with the Caitlyn lane the way that you would expect to, but weren't really coming out ahead in a lot of those trades and a lot of those kind of actual engagements, right? They didn't cash out with too many kills, and they ended up giving up a lot of kills to ganks from Bengai
Yep.
Now Bengai going to be on the Wukong, going to be a similar threat in his ability to close gaps and get onto folks in the early game. Going to need the ultimate for the CC, but still going to be a big threat if you go for a similar kind of pushing style, and just kind of ended up getting outperformed by the G7 bot lane as the game went on. Very curious to see how they're going to be able to come back now, given that they are the ones who have that super powerful Jinx pick in their hands.
And I would say a lot of that was a bit on the disrespect, I would say, from both Minui and CC Legendary. Like, it's not weird to see the Caitlyn Karma push, right? Like, we know how this lane works. You have a Caitlyn Karma that they're going to out-win the push pretty much just by existing because of how these champions work. But they didn't respect what both Hope, Phantom Star, and also Benny could do down there in the bot side. Like, they didn't respect the potential there. And I think this time around, maybe the lack of point and click CC will help them out quite a bit in surviving the amount of ganks, as well as having a tank support that can tank those ganks as well. But it's still really weird to see that coming off from, particularly I would say, from Minui. Like, once again, going back to win conditions for both of these teams, G7's win condition was clearly going to be playing through Hope. And this is something we were talking about before draft, and that Fear should know because of how they do prefer to play towards the bot side in terms of the top side. So the fact that they didn't respect that sort of playstyle coming in from G7 is a kind of a scary factor for me, and I think a lot on that has to fall on Minui because he is the starting AD carry. Like, CC Legendary is supposed to be the sub, not the main sub, but the sub on the roster. So if that's the case, the blame can go to him to a certain degree, but not to the same amount as Minui. And I think he has to step up his game. He's the NACL AD carry. He's the one that is up there playing against other equal level players and also delivering in some of those moments. So he has to be the one to step up at this point and try and fight back against Hope that we've been hyping up, and for a reason, after that performance.
And the team's putting that faith in him, right? He's got the Jinx in his hands. He's got that highest priority pick. They could have locked in the Orianna here on B1 and played through Shochi, but they decided, hey, you know, Shochi's got the champion pool, or, you know, we feel like Ziggs is the counter pick and that Shochi's going to be able to run that lane as long as we give him the Bombardier. And instead, they use that B1 on the Jinx to make sure that they are going to have that hyper scaling carry for Minui. So going to see how he's going to be able to perform on that one. He's a big Aphelios guy, right? That was his most played champion all year. And it's a kind of a similar class of champion, right? Those are the two that always pop up in the meta side by side, as the Jinx and the Aphelios, when enchanters at attack speed are good. Been several metas like that over the course of the last year or two. Now going to be in the hands of the Jinx to see if he's going to be able to reset his way to victory and claim it for Cincinnati Fear to take us to a game number 3. We're gonna start to check out the runes down here below the phase rush for the Kennen. I like to see that one here, as that's gonna be really crucial for trying to get yourself away from this Olaf.
Yeah, having as much tools to try and not get locked down or persecuted by the Olaf would be quite a deal, especially Kennen. He does deal a lot of damage, but he's squishy. So you don't want to be victim of one axe, one bit of slow coming your way, because that would mean probably dying. And just quickly noticing, actually interesting that it's going to be the phase rush on the Sejuani. We've seen more of the tankier runes on the Sejuani in general, but having that phase rush, probably trying to be as quick as possible to try and get on top of some of these champions before they just naturally escape you.
Yes, Sejuani's always been an interesting one with the rune choices, especially in the jungle, where it's like nothing has ever really perfectly fit her. Like, you can go for the aftershock, but it's like that's not really helpful in situations where you throw out the glacial prison. It tends to drop off you before too long. Some folks have tried going for the fleet work for a while for a little bit of extra jungle sustain, but that's been nerfed over time. Phase rush, an interesting option though here to see if he's going to be able to stick to targets and chase folks down on that one. And again, this is kind of moving back towards the kind of picks that I think Harry played a lot of, especially in summer. Sejuani, one of his real dangerous champions during Cincinnati Fear's run through the NACL. Now facing off against Bengai's Wukong. I mean, Sejuani Wukong, this is a matchup that everybody should know very well at this point. Gonna be curious to see how that jungle matchup plays out, as Bengai, we talked about his Maokai in game number 1. He got a lot done in the early game. He was a really crucial aspect to being able to get all those kills in the bot lane and set them up into a position where they were able to take the win.
and he will probably be able to do something similar. Will lack the CC though compared to the previous game with the Maokai point and click CC, much easier to get ganks going, but in comparison he will have the damage to back him up. So he is giving up the CC for the damage instead. And if there's follow-up by the team, in which I think particularly top lane and bot lane are the two lanes that can make that work out easier earlier on, then he can try and get the game going for himself. I would say though, I feel like with Wukong you have to try and farm up to your level 6. Like, it's much easier to play around that, get your first your level 6, your ultimate, and then you can set up the ganks really easy, especially against champions like the 6 and Jinx. They are champions that you're able or you're allowed to wait till you're level 6 to actually gank, and then you can try and shut down really effectively, unless maybe a flash is blown at like 2 minutes. That's the only case where I see, okay, go and dumpster them as much as possible. But if not, you can wait till level 6, go for ganks in that point, and then you can play it out better.
Yeah, and a very effective level 1 composition put together by Cincinnati Fear here as well. Curious to see if they try to go for something early with the Nautilus, with the Sejuani. That ability to lock folks down early on, and the ability to chase folks down with somebody like Philip on the undertow. It's going to be really big. G7, of course, they have the Orianna Ball for defense. They have Rakan able to grand entrance or battle dance out to safety as necessary, but definitely something that's in the cards if they do decide to go for it on Cincinnati Fear.
Yeah, there's tools to try and escape, but there's tools to try and lock them out, lock them down if possible. Like this time, at the very least for Fear, there's way more ways to try and get on top of targets. I think that's much better for them to try and make fights happen and initiate on certain things.
Absolutely, and it sounds like we are ready to get into game now for game number 2. So let's transition on over to Summoner's Rift as Cincinnati Fear is looking to come back up against G7, shut down this potential upset, and take us to a game number 3. Oh,
perfect.
Tricky was forced to flash. A little something happened. Looks like ZZ Legendary probably went for the flash hook in mid lane. I am assuming we got ourselves that the old classic where they rush down mid and flash on the Nautilus is now going to be Bengai who's the next target. Bengai's going to be forced to flash. Now Steel City has to start Lightning Rush. Oh no, this is all going wrong for G7 in the level 1.
Well, that's a way to start a game. Not a good one, but that's a way to start a game. 2 flashes down, E start on the cannon, and everything already looking quite positive for Fear. And this is the things that we were talking about before, Gordo. Level 1s can be crucial in games if you play them well. And so far, Fear doing a really good job. Now they need to utilize this advantage in their favor as CC Legendary. He actually doesn't miss it. He's just looking if someone maybe is there. But it looks kind of funny though.
It does. Like that aggressive level 1 planning there from Cincy Fear is going to net them a summoner spell advantage across the map. We'll see how the laning phase is going to break out as Hope and Phantom Star lay down a little bit of a trap here, but are going to take a bit of a rough trade up against Manui and ZZ Legendary. Phantom Star, the one who takes the most punishment out of the 4, going to have to lane with a little bit lower HP.
Yeah, the difference is on who starts the lowest on both sides. And Hope able to not blow his spot initially, going to be a bit easier for them to take more trades. And now that the Jinx has to play without a pot, probably can be a bit more dangerous on their side. As I don't typically hamper too much about initial items, but I will say I like the fact that Minui went for the call instead of going for the Doran's Blade, because there's barely any shot of actually dying in this lane, and I think you want to maximize as much gold as you can in the Jinx, so you want to try and reach your mythic as soon as possible.
You absolutely do. Going to be going for that late game farming style on the Jinx. Set up to abuse that range advantage that you've got for yourself coming into the later game. Philip lands an undertow onto Steel City, gets the lightning rush out. He doesn't touch a champion, so it's going to be a substantial energy cost, and going to just continue to take a little bit of a push there from the real Philip in the top lane. Going to look to get themselves with those early plates. Not sure if he went for Demolish or not. Doesn't look like he did. Going to be feeling very strong here nonetheless.
But already a much quieter game compared to the previous one, right? The last one we had early solo kills up there in the top lane with the Ignite and the Rumble being able to kill the Gnar. Then we saw plays in the mid lane, in the bot lane as well. A much quieter start for both sides and a much controlled start as well. Not much given up apart from those initial flashes, and it feels like they're not going to be punished as we see maybe an initial gank here. Maybe taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, Bengai coming on out. It's all on Phantom Star to get the knockup. Lands it only onto ZZ Legendary. It's going to take some damage on the backside. Here comes that hook back in, but Bengai is here, and ZZ Legendary going to go down to one more auto. Hope manages to pick up first blood. Just too aggressive by ZZ Legendary in the bottom lane with the hook back in.
He's regretting taking that hook. As we see, maybe a play as well in the mid lane. Tricky probably has flash. Actually, no, he can't.
Yeah, push back on in, going to go down. There's that blow of the flash at level 1, paying off in spades for the Cincinnati Fears squad as they take down Tricky in the mid lane.
And that is why you have to pay attention to the summoners. Almost forgot that there's no flash on the Orianna, and they take full advantage of that. Really nice play there, trying to punish Tricky in that way. And also, not only because of the Sejuani going into the lane, by Perry, but with how they were setting it up, because the wave was pushed in, Shochi made it so that the wave would bounce towards his side, and that just forced Tricky into an awful spot. Great execution and great play. But then the bot lane play, the initial one, is it normal that Hope is going for Serrated Dirk? Is that now the build for Sivir?
Am not sure, but that is definitely an interesting one to see coming out. Is really quick. We got a gank onto Philip. One auto away from getting stunned. Will get stunned up, but he's underneath the turret. Bengai doesn't want to tank any turret shots. He's just going to make sure the wave gets shoved in and set up for a nice, safe, and easy recall for Steel City.
Well, there are 3 members up here, but yeah, like you're pointing out, Gordo, more than likely it's not going to be the case. Philip actually looking a bit aggressive onto Steel City Warrior.
Yeah, I'm looking, by the way. I'm not seeing very many Dirk builds for the Sivir, at least on UGG, so maybe a little something spicy getting cooked up by Hope here.
I'm pretty sure they changed that. Like, I remember the one before, but they changed that amount of damage on the Q in comparison. Tricky.
They did. Tricky going to trigger the phase rush to dodge away from the mace of Parry. Now calling in the rest of his team. Gonna get moved back in. That's going to be a Mega Inferno Bomb. Tons of
so
damage out of Shochi. And Bengai and Phantom Star are going to pay the price as well. Got to flash out to safety and battle dance their way out of there. 2 flashes and a kill onto Tricky. Cincinnati Fear catch up big time.
And Ben got his flashback, and then after that play loses it out immediately. Really nice play by Fear there. It felt like Tricky thought that he was completely alone in that play. Like, he was completely alone. No, that Shochi and Perry were completely alone. There was only 2 members, and in reality, the hook from the Nautilus coming completely from the blind spot. Perfect play there, setting up for the kill, and now also collecting the dragon in their favor. First Dragon Blood for them.
Great stuff from Fear. Back to the Hope build. I wonder if this is going to be like just an attempt at like an ARAM style lethality build, just adapted to in response to the Jinx, right? Gonna try to take this Sivir in a different direction just to try to be a little bit more lane dominant. But yeah, as you said, yeah, they've changed the balance on this stuff. It's not been the default build for a long time.
At all. That's why it feels kind of weird. Maybe he goes Collector and then tries to spike on 2 items instead. Could also be the case, but not trying to think much more about builds. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. The important thing here now, though, is the fact that already one of the biggest difference compared to the previous game that we were seeing in this one is shutting down Tricky as soon as possible. 0-2-0, the Orianna not really finding the same value like she did in the previous game, and you're also getting kills as Perry and as Shochi in a competitive matchup against these Orianna, which means that now you have a bit more pressure in the mid lane and thus being able to move around more towards the map. Really like this adaptation, and it all comes down from that level 1 flash blown by Tricky and getting attacked consistently by Perry in this game.
Perry looking for the invade, going to find Bengai at his red buff and going to use that phase rush to try to chase him down. Stun into guaranteed Mega Inferno Bomb. Shochi just demolishes him.
And this is also why I said this time around I like more what Fear had for their side, because one bit of CC is really easy for Shochi to get the Mega Inferno Bomb. Another good kill, another nice amount of gold going into the pockets of Fear, and they can keep on running the show like this. Oriana cannot push this wave over to 6 because 6 will always out push you. Like, his kit will just allow you to be an interactive in lane and work out for you.
Star going to find ZZ Legendary in the jungle here. Shochi's getting called down. Phantom Star's going to have to battle dance his way out to safety. He's going to stick on top of Tricky. Shockwaves him back in. They're calling over Bengai, who still doesn't have the Cyclone. And Manui is coming up to join in on the action, going to try to block off with those Flame Chompers. Jump over the wall from Bengai to get him to safety. G7 are going to look to disengage. Parry comes in, though. Lands the Glacial Prison onto Tricky, who's going to have to flash away. But again, it is FaZe Rush Sejuani. She is going to chase you down as Parry picks up the kill.
And this is the sort of punishment that Fear not only lacked a bit in the previous game, but it's looking much more crisp. Minui going a bit too far forward, but it's not going to die. And actually, the Wukong, man, missed the smite.
No. The smite was so close. It gets stolen away by Parry. The kill going to get picked up this time by ZZ Legendary's Manui. Just pushing back Hope and Phantom Star. 1 versus 2. Knows that he has the backup of his 2 boys in the river. Cincinnati Fear with another dominant early game, coming out swinging in game number 2.
Exactly, the change in plans working marvelously for the side of Fear, and with this already not only having complete control over the map, but even Shochi just getting the first item, being able to push onto this Oriana so much. The Jinx as well having a really nice time that they're in the bot side. Birdie has had to do anything because she's just pushing out waves, trying to get as much gold as she can, and trying to play out the game as effectively as she can eventually towards the later stages of the game.
Knockback away onto Tricky. Shochi looking for this full-on trade, and look at all of that damage that this Oriana takes. No summoners, no shockwave. Going to have to sacrifice this wave and lose additional plating to Cincinnati Fear. Great play there by Shochi, showing why he likes this Ziggs into the Oriana matchup.
Yeah, understandable why they went so early on for the champion there and why it's working out so amazingly. Also thanks to the setup that they were able to initially play around with, but it's been really good so far, as we see Philip also pushing out the waves, and pretty much the complete game from Fear, from top to bottom. Each of the lanes has been in complete control of the members of Fear, maybe looking for a dive here into the Oriana.
Tricky gonna shockwave the wave right away, or he is just getting full-on dove. A nice shockwave onto 3 members, but it's not going to be enough. ZZ Legendary will eventually drop Jochi as well, actually. Some really favorable targeting there from the turret. Gets Tricky a 2-for-1.
That shouldn't have worked out that well for Tricky, but that's going to be 2 kills now in favor of the Oriana. The shutdown going to her pockets, and even though it's not going to be the mythic completed for her, at the very least, you're salvaging a pretty big situation. You also have to consider that it's not only the kills that she's getting, but also the fact that the top lane, the mid lane turret, is not going to get completely blown out by the 6.
We are in slow motion right now. Probably a little mishit on the keyboard. There we go. Back to regular speed is Hope. Eventually getting engaged on here. The nice double slow from Parry. It's going to be the quickness thrown down by Phantom Star to try to guarantee them a pathway out. He's going to end up tanking up that Glacial Prison, but will continue to battle dance his way out, in a successful disengage by Phantom Star and Hope. They get away with their lives. In a 3v2, you'll take. Is Bengai going to look for something here? He's got the ultimate. Ultimates were committed. Here's the TP in from Steel City Warrior. They're looking for it all in the bottom lane. Dive in from Bengai. He gets the Cyclone onto Parry. The lockdown onto Manui from the slicing Maelstrom will pick up a second. And now ZZ Legendary, they're all focused onto him. But here's the Mega Inferno Bomb. Blows Hope out of the water. And the rest of G7 have got to head for the hills in the face of Shochi's damage. They should be able to get themselves this dragon, as they got themselves 3 kills.
Yeah, there's no way that the Olaf on the top lane can try and re-engage, and there's enough champions to try and control Shochi here. But he has the poke damage, so they have to be a bit careful about how much damage they're going to take from the 6. They probably will get the dragon anyway, or the kill.
Exhaust on a Shochi. He doesn't manage to get over the wall. The satchel charge, Shockwave back in, but the follow-up damage is not yet coming through. They finally managed to take him out and kill Steel City Warrior, but now it's Parry looking for the steal on the dragon. He gets that as well, as he's going to try to bail out with the flash. Here comes Manui. Is Manui going to commit going over the wall? He doesn't have the flash to clear the terrain, and that means that G7 are going to be able to get away, but they do not secure the dragon they were looking for.
It would have been such a nice victory for the side of G7, but we see here the initial part of the play where everyone commits with the teleport on the back. They go in with the flash in ultimate from the Wukong. They have the damage, they have the follow-up, and also the teleport on the back. Really, really good by Steel City Warrior, finding Minui in such a bad spot with no flash. They are able to try and persecute here the Nautilus, but they pay the price with Hope dying there. More than likely not expecting the amount of burst that Shochi was able to do, and also the fact that the 6, even without ultimate, he's a really good poker, and I think they could have secured a dragon, but probably thought that the gold from the kill from Shochi was going to be much more valuable in the long run than just getting the dragon. I think it's a respectable choice, but it does mean that now you're much closer to giving up the soul than trying to collect anything else, and it's going to be Hextech soul, which is quite a bit different, a big difference maker. Oh, Shochi?
Yeah, Shochi gets his right as the Ziggs in the form of the first turret, and is once again just poking out Tricky. He's just never been able to be at any kind of reasonable health total while he's locked in lane with the Bombardier. A 30 CS lead for Shochi. Going to be almost a kill in and of itself, as well as everything he's been able to clean up and lock down with Perry's help. He is very rich in this game.
Very rich, very strong, a lot of damage coming down from the 6. Oh, and
whoa, whoa, whoa! All right, trying to predict a little something there as Perry doesn't end up catching Steel City Warrior, but the chase down is coming through nonetheless. A flash in from Philip. He's not and let that rat away, and he is going to take down another kill for Cincinnati Fear.
It's okay, Gordo. He learned from the best jungler of NA history. He learned from Xmithy, and that's why we see those sort of ultimates. They got the kill. That's what matters. Also, Ben. Oh,
Ben guy. Yeah, you got to watch out. These Stormrazor procs aren't nothing. Takes a little bit of damage from Minui. Gets hit by another zap as well. Here comes the Dragon Death Rocket. The hook just barely doesn't connect. And maybe you don't want that to connect if you're ZZ Legendary, because this is a 4 versus 2 dive. Getting set up. Phantom Star going to pop the quickness. Already out of dodge is Minui as the resets are starting to come through. No. And this is all going wrong for G7. Minui needs another hyper proc to chase him down, but the shockwave is going to knock him back as Phantom Star is going to flank Tricky and make sure that he could get out there to safety. Still chasing on the bottom side, but we're paying attention up the top now as Philip is looking for a dive on a Steel City Warrior. Here comes the Rift Herald to enable the dive, but the damage from Steel City might just be a little bit too much. Philip going to try to drain back up. Shochi now looking to cut off the remaining members of G7, but they will be able to get themselves out. No more kills, but plenty of structures for Cincinnati Fear.
They're still making fun of them. That was closer than it needed to be there with the amount of damage, but able to escape with nobody else dying. The dive, though, was really, really, really botched by the side of G7. Able to take the very minimum of losses with just the Wukong dying, but if we see the replay there, they were so low at attempting that dive. The Wukong was below 50% health. The Jinx, the Sivir took, I think, 2 charge shots, and then they were trying to engage onto the Jinx that, yes, she's a Jinx, but she still has enough damage, and then the quick teleport to try and respond to the play. Fear played that out really, really well, and I think G7 didn't respect the amount of defense potential that Fear can try and go for, without taking into account the fact that top lane got completely run down.
Yeah, the kills aren't even that heavily in the favor of Fear, as a little break there as a potential fight breaking out. Fear looking to chase down Tricky. Philip has the approach velocity, chasing down this Orianna, will take him out. Shochi ending up with the kill credit, and Steel City Warrior just going to have to wave goodbye as they walk their way out.
They find the angle in the corridor, kill Tricky, which has had a much, much, much rougher game compared to the previous one. And that will mean that it's not only the kill, it's another turret in their favor. And in 40 seconds, potentially Dragon's Soul Point going into their pockets as well. There's a lot of value in that Dragon alone, and I think that as long as Fear gets that, they are going to keep the game in a chokehold, because now G7 will be forced into going into every Dragon in the continuation of the game.
Absolutely. Here is trying to bring up earlier the Cincinnati Fear kill score. It's not even that far ahead. It's just NACL solo lane diff. Look at the CS here for Philip and Shochi, just absolutely dominating their lane matchups. And you saw in the plate gold earlier on, all 5 plates claimed for Shochi, 4 plates claimed for Philip. They have cashed out massively off of these lane advantages, and that's how you end up with a 10k gold lead, even though you're only 5 kills ahead.
Yeah, I will say that is the advantage of actually playing to your laners in value, and also the bot lane not being completely deserted. Like, I think it's a mix of both of those things working out so well for Fear, and they are clearly delivering so far this game. Also, will say, for as much as we said about Minui in the previous game, he's playing really, really well so far. Hasn't given up enough deaths, or even just one death is quite a very few number. And if he can keep this up, he's going to reach the point where he's going to be the hyper carry. Especially because I honestly don't like the Sivir build either. Oh, Minui.
Minui getting caught out, though. You can't
to say,
the TDS.
Yeah, I have to
He will
say,
get picked off and taken down by Hope.
I'm sorry, Minui. It honestly wasn't my propose. It wasn't my intent. I didn't want that.
Oh, Phantom Star just walking through, picking up all of those. They're not candies, man. You don't have to pick up every single one. He takes a lot of damage there and is going to have to probably take a recall.
Ooh, that was close there. Philip almost stealing the red buff, and now actually maybe looking to round down the Wukong.
Ooh, was trying to predict the blink over the wall there. I like that, but doesn't end up connecting. Steel City Warrior just sprinting his way out as well, taking a fair bit of damage. ZZ Legendary might be the target that can't get away. He's going to go for the knockup, gets it onto Tricky. As here comes Philip for the backside. Shockwave is going to take down ZZ, but it's not going to stop Philip. Philip is just running amok out of the back line, but will finally get melted down by Hope. He picks up 2 in trade, and finally Minui ends up finishing off Steel City Warrior. When all is said, cross map, it's a 2 for 3 in favor of Cincinnati Fear.
It works out much better for Fear, and also Hope able to survive by just the skin of his teeth. Probably not what you were looking for. Hopefully there's no way that Shochi can try and kill him here, but the victories for Fear are spread out all around the map, and there's barely any advantage that you can really say that G7 was able to obtain. The really difficult game so far for G7, they still have hope, and I mean that both as a pun and in the fact that they have hope on Sivir, so if they reach 3-4 items, they probably can play this out. Oh, Shochi.
I do really like this from Bengai. He's just walking up and pressing S to act like he's taking the decoy in, which forces Shochi to interrupt his recall, but he's not actually Nimbus striking in, so he's not putting himself at any threat of getting baited into ZZ Legendary or somebody.
Wait, didn't he use his might to stop the back? I thought that it was that.
Yes, but that's the second time in a row.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's just the mind games. You have to make them believe what they don't want to believe. I think that's how it goes.
True.
Yeah.
Do love to see some usage of these decoy mechanics in a world where Nico is viable again. As Hope takes a bunch of damage. He's going to go down to Mega Inferno Bomb. Hope is picked. Steel City Warrior coming in on the flank. Going to get some good stuns on a cross, but the damage, it's just not there. As Bengai will drop. Minui survives with a sliver of HP. It's a double kill going over to Shochi. Tricky's going to be able to pick up an objective bounty on the other side of the map, but it's a disastrous fight for G7, and it just might cost them their base.
Yeah, remember they have the Jinx and the 6. They have super pushing powers to try and blow out not only the champions but also objectives. Now with the stack, maybe they actually can try and blow out the game. Oh, wait, they flash in.
Oh, very late on the shockwave. Doesn't clear the whole wave either. The siege minion is still present. Hope is respawned, but Hope is 1 versus 3. Here comes Bengai going for the backup, but Hope is already dropped, and there's no hope left for G7 once again in both meanings of the word, as Cincinnati Fear are going to take game number 2, and we're going to game number 3.
Yeah, Fear took it upon themselves to try and pull back the series into their favor as best as they can, and now going into the game 3, we have the final team fight. The initial plan not bad, but look at this. Hope taking every bit of damage from both Shochi and Minui on the side, not able to escape fast enough, gets picked up, immediately killed, and because of the difference so far in the game, there's no damage to kill Minui. Minui is in the eye of the storm between Wukong and Kennen, and nobody can kill the Jinx. That's how bad the game was going for the side of G7. And when that happens with the Orianna pushing bot lane as well, I think Tricky teleported bot lane as well, which opened up the opportunity for them to just push into the base. And with this happens, you pretty much are losing the game. Like that is the Hail Mary, and the Hail Mary was never going to work out that well.
Yeah, it's Shochi with the pick onto Hope that closes out the game there. They don't have the damage without the Sivir, especially with Tricky trying to push out of the bottom lane. And you know, that flash, it's both too fast and too slow, right? It's too early and it's too late. It's too greedy is what it really is at the end of the day, is he doesn't flash the initial damage from that satchel charge into bouncing bomb combo, but then he doesn't have the flash to dodge away from the Mega Inferno Bomb. He uses it instead to put some distance. That means he does end up going down. There's just too much damage in the tank for the Ziggs. And look at Shochi's damage on these charts here, just doubling up on anybody else in the game. Very impressive stuff from Shochi on his Ziggs counter pick in game number 2.
Yeah, pretty good standout game by Shochi, one of the players that we tend to hype up. One of the players I want to see promoted. You can see it on the sideline. One of the players that I'm hyping up a lot to get promoted, and getting such a good performance here with the 6, showcasing his champion pool value with being able to get a counter pick that not a lot of people play into the arena. And maybe in the third game, probably going to get another one, because based on what I think will happen, we're probably going to see a blue side game for the side of G7, trying to secure that Jinx first.
Yeah, absolutely. Shochi, a very deep champion pooled player. I would not be surprised if we end up seeing some more interesting picks out of him in tonight's series. Been playing mostly Jace. He's got 3 games of Jace.
Yeah.
That's been his most picked this season, but plenty of other picks have shown their faces, and we may very well get to see some of them as tonight's series edges on. Depends on where that Orianna falls, really. Is now blind Orianna not looking quite as safe for G7 as it might have in game number 1. We'll have to see how the draft evolves as this series goes on, as we are going to a game number 3. We're going to throw it to a quick break while we get set up for draft, but we're going to be back before too long as we find out if Cincinnati Fear or G7 are going to move themselves up with one more win in the Zon group. Welcome back, everybody, to the Aegis Champions League, where we are going to game number 3 between Gang 7 and Cincinnati Fear. Both of these teams looking to move themselves up in the Zon group and compete for really like a playoff slot is starting to get on the line. We knew it was on the line the whole time for Gang 7 as they're in that mass of 3 trying to get that 4th slot, but it might not just be the 4th slot that's up for grabs. If G7 are able to upset Fear here and push them down to 3-3, Fear now need to start wondering, like, hey, man, a 3-4. If we lose next week to CCG Futures, or no, they play St. Clair Saints next week.
Yeah.
Next week when they play St. Clair, 3-4 might not be good enough to make the cut. It's top 4 make it, bottom 4 are eliminated. There's no last chance qualifiers in the ACL this split, so you need to be top 4 out of the 8 in your group. And there's 6 teams competing for it right here. This game is getting very important for both of these teams.
Exactly. It's to a certain degree a kind of elimination matchup, not because it legitimately is, but it creates that sort of a scenario going into next week. And if you're a fan of trying to see everyone going to the wire in the last match, then you probably are rooting for G7 to take it, because that would create the best possible scenario in terms of competition and seeing who gets out of the group. But if you just want Fear to win, then you probably just want Fear to win, and that's about it. Hopefully we get a good last match though, because in the first game I think G7 did such an amazing job, and then Fear answered back really effectively with the power of their soul laners, players that we've been hyping up so much because of their current status as an ACL players. Just bringing them up as much as possible and playing to the degree that we were expecting, and finally delivering through that. As we see the bans finalizing with the Jinx being selected as well on the side of Fear, or banned away on the side of Fear, it's the Saya and Rumble as well. Philip performed amazingly well on the Rumble in the first game, even with the loss.
I like Saya in the current meta. There's a lot of hard engaged champions being prioritized, especially what we've seen out of Cincinnati Fear tonight, right? There's game number 1, they were maybe a little bit more skirmishy, but in game number 2 with that Sejuani, that Olaf, that Nautilus, they were really all about getting in there and forcing the fight. This does mean that they give up the Orianna and the Rumble. Philip was so dominant on that pick in game number 1. And now Orianna going to be a very powerful pick in the meta. It's been given over to the side of Gang 7 and Tricky twice in a row, and it might be given over again as Cincinnati Fear, they decide to take the Kalista. Even with the Ziggs banned away, this is bold.
I'm expecting either Shochi has another counter that can go against the Orianna, or they have a really, really good plan to try and stop her from playing. But in all honesty, I'm not the biggest fan of the Kalista. I don't have particular favor for this champion in the current meta. I feel like she gets picked for her early game value, but if she doesn't like perform to a really high degree early game, then she falls off really heavily compared to other AD carries. And I think that she's really easy to punish in a lot of situations. Hopefully Fear can shut me up in that sense, but I'm not a believer in the Kalista at all. As we see the Nico, as well as potentially here the support being picked, I wouldn't mind going for the Rakan here again for the Saya Rakan duel, as well as having another partner for the Nico to engage onto the backline of Fear.
All right, so the Nico going to be the pick into mid, and now the Orianna's blanked the whole first round of picks and bans, even though we've talked about how critical the champion is. You never know what's going to happen in a League of Legends draft. G7, they get the Lovers duo, but Cincinnati Fear, they get the counter engaged champ in the form of the Renata, and now the Kalista, who's been so heavily prioritized at Worlds. So Nocturne going to be banned away. They're going to look to continue to pinch Bengai's champion pool. I expect a Maokai ban to come through as well. G7 going to actually be the ones to ban away the Maokai. They want to take it away from Perry.
Well, it could be a really good angle to try and secure it here. And like we were mentioning before, Shochi with such a big champion pool, you want to leave the last pick for himself. You want to leave him get the opportunity to decide whatever he wants to play against all the G7 composition. So I'm not against the fact that they are trying to play around this. With the Wukong band away here, I'm expecting maybe the Sejuani to follow suit as well. Perry performed really, really well with the Sejuani in the previous game. So trying to ban it here wouldn't be a bad choice. Maybe another engaged champion in the jungle, like a buy that we've seen appearing quite consistently, could be the last ban coming through, but apart from that, I don't see anything else of priority to get banned away here.
Sejuani going to join that pick. They're going to look to try to limit what champions Perry has access to. Now flipping through the old little book of champions here is Shochi to see what exactly he wants to take. Why are you blinding here, though, my man? Just pick Perry,
Yeah.
his jungler. I guess. All right, this is acceptable. This is an acceptable blind. I'm okay, and it's not even blind actually. They're against Nico. They know they're against Nico, so
Well,
they're gonna
we
lock
could
in the
even talk.
Orianna. Could be, but they're gonna lock in the Orianna. I don't know. It's the best mid laner on the patch. I'm fine with this.
I agree. I do agree. I think Orion is the best mid lane in the patch. That being said, I probably would have liked to see more leaving the last pick for Shochi. Once again, he has such a big pool that maybe he has something up his sleeve that can be the hyper carry of the game. But Oriana does give you that late game insurance policy that neither the Kalista nor the Rumble will give you. That at the very least will work out really, really well for them. And in this case, they can try and also play with knowing what Perry is going to go against and giving him a potential to counter carry the game as well. It is not necessarily a bad idea for Fear. Could be a Silas jungle as well, by the way. Although, no, it's looking like it's Piego.
Diego jungle here. Shout out to Risen Esports coming in with the raid. Hope you guys enjoyed your match today. We've got a banger here in the Aegis Champions League. It's NACL team Cincinnati Fear running 4 out of their 5 NACL players. Have already dropped the game to G7. G7 are looking to complete the biggest upset of the ACL so far, I gotta say. I'm willing to call it that for now. I mean, before now, what? It was Clown Gaming being able to pick up that series we covered earlier.
Yeah.
Against St. Clair, maybe. And I mean, even that's not even an upset anymore. Clown Gaming is awesome. They're undefeated. We've had to readjust our expectations on that one, as now Poppy is going to round out the draft. That is going to be the jungler for Perry. That is going to be more early game tanky power here for the Cincinnati Fear jungler.
And I'm glad Perry remembered that Poppy exists, because a lot of teams forget the existence of this champion, and legitimately in the current meta, she's really strong. So I'm really glad that they picked up the Poppy. Has a lot of great setup with a couple of the champions here. Bull can deliver the ball towards the back lane, so really good pairing with the Orianna, and will essentially deny 3 out of the 5 champions on the side of G7. So full value coming here for the Poppy, and also the Hammer can push away the initiation from both the Rakan and the Nico. So I'm really glad with this last pick. And for the side of Fear, their composition, even though I'm completely against the Kalista, I think the fact that it's Kalista Renata salvages a bit more how they can play it out. And overall, team fighting wise, it's not a weak composition to try and play around, particularly because the Renata ultimate can find so much value against the engaged potential from G7.
Absolutely agree here, and I think the Poppy is such a great R5 pick here for the Cincinnati Fierce squad, especially up against these champions that G7 have drafted, right? We talked about how many dashes there are, and the Rakan is obvious, but I think it's particularly good up against champions like Silas and Viego, these kind of squishier carrier champions, not just supports, who you now have to rethink how you play your kind of baseline skirmishes and fights on this Silas, on this Viego, because they lock themselves into dashes, right? You start channeling your Maw, on your Spectral Maw on Viego. You have no choice but to dash when you let that go. You throw out an Abduct on Silas. Yet again, if that connects, you have no choice but to dash. And you can react to that as the Poppy and make these folks grounded, take away their ability to flash, and really disrupt their fights. You have to respect that as G7, as the pilots of this Silas or this Viego, and you have to change how you play the characters straight up coming into the fights. And that's always a very difficult thing to do, and just a tiny slip up, you just autopilot and start channeling your Spectral Maw to try to engage a fight as Ben guy, and Perry will punish you and will completely take you out of the game for it.
Exactly. There's just light mechanical plays that may impact a lot of how a team fight ends up going. Slight mechanical plays and outplays that may affect the outcome of team fight. So it's going to be quite an interesting game, seeing how both of these sides will end up playing. And at the very least, that's going to be quite interesting, seeing if one team with the higher mechanical prowess will win out, or maybe a more prepped out strategy can end up delivering as well, with G7 having a pretty clear cut strat of engaging and killing, with the Saya not dying. That's pretty much how I'm expecting them to try and force some fights to happen. So it's going to be really, really interesting. And going into a point that we pretty much have talked about all series long, and it's that bot lane, right? The fight between Minui and Hope. The Hope, the AD carry that we've been pretty much hyping up all series long, and then Minui that we felt needed to step up according to what Hope was presenting. I think had a much better game in the second game, but still isn't feeling like the hyper carry or the counter carry to what Hope is doing, and I think he still needs to showcase something to try and answer back to what Hope has showcased so far.
I agree. I think there's like a default assumption, right? That, you know, top 4 NACL team goes up against an amateur squad like G7. You know, these guys don't have a Twitter, at least not one that I can find a tag. There's an expectation, right, that you're going to outclass in every position and every role, and that you're just going to slam this series. That has not played out here. So, I mean, props to us for picking a great featured game. I mean, you know, give yourself a pat on the back there. Everybody involved in the decision-making process over at Aegis. But yeah, definitely expecting a little bit more out of Manui in this series, and now has the power to do so on this Kalista, right? Third chance now going to be on this super heavily prioritized pick on the current and last couple of patches. This has been like near permaban at Worlds and been picked when it isn't. And it's going to be attempting to be super dominant through the bot lane, right? Playing up against another very powerful lane duo in Xayah and Rakan, but you pick the Kalista because you trust that it's going to come out on top. Even if that matchup comes through, the Xayah was the B1. You knew that Rakan was coming up if you lock Rumble Kalista. Cincinnati Fear opted into this, and now they need to show something for it.
Exactly. It's something similar to what we said in the previous game, right? It's showing that they have hope for Manui, that they have high hopes for Manui in that sense, and if they can perform in this last game, could be a really nice statement by Fear, particularly because even if I hate the champion in its current state, I think that you can still play it out accordingly. And if Manui destroys the bot lane, then he pretty much can carry out the game by himself with just 1.5, 2 items really early on. So hopefully he's able to try and perform like that and deliver in what some of the expectations may end up being for that. And on the other side, I think Hope staying true to what we kind of hyped up so far with him. Great hyper carry, has a really set up a style of playing, and as long as they can play around that, he is going to deliver a lot of the tools. And I think this time around, being able to self-build for himself with the Xayah ultimate, it's going to be quite nice for him. Like, he doesn't need to depend on anyone to try and carry the fights, and I think that can be a massive value for Hope as an AD carry.
I think it definitely can as well. It's going to be, it's been the Hope show, I think, a lot of this series, right, for the side of G7, even in game number 2, where they were really struggling. I think he was one of the players that they were looking towards to be able to try to turn things around and make plays happen on the Sivir. Didn't really end up working out that way. And, you know, the options became very limited very quickly. But again, you know, what broke the back in that game was the fact that they were able to pick off Hope so early. They were able to just snowball that into a very early win for Cincinnati Fear. Going to have to see if they're going to be able to do that again now, is a little bit more self-peel in the hands of Hope in the form of this Xayah, and you know, has the Rakan at their back as well, and all of the tools that Sylas, Nico, Viego are going to bring to the table to try to disengage. You know, the Sylas can be a disengaged champion when you can steal away a Poppy ult, a Rumble ult, a Renata ultimate. All those things going to be very, very valuable in that department. So a lot of tools to protect Hope, and a lot of tools to disengage where necessary. Going to be very interesting to see these two compositions clash with one another.
Yeah, there's pretty straight ideas on both sides that can end up working out really, really well. And as long as you're able to execute on them, obviously it's going to be much, much easier to try and make things work out in your favor. Once again, though, I want to bring up something that I feel like it's very similar to the first game that Fear is currently going to face, and it's, I feel like, the lack of consistency CC on their side. Like, there's no consistent way to get CC down on their team to follow up on a Rumble ultimate. Compared to the previous game where they had the Sejuani and the Nautilus, really easy lockdowns to try and have the 6 pull out the ultimate and be able to kill targets. This time around, there's no straight up CC tool to try and lock down someone, and that makes Rumble's ultimate a bit harder to hit, a bit harder to play around with, because you don't have the lockdown to try and make it work as easily as possible. Yes, a Poppy Stone can come through onto a wall, or maybe the Renata ultimate sets you up because everyone is kind of put into the spot to try and fight back, but there's no easy way to get the lockdown for the Rumble ultimate. There's good combos though.
There definitely are. There's going to be a lot of interesting opportunities for some of those combos to end up making big differences here. My eyes are going to be glued to the Poppy and how much disruption towards the G7 composition Perry is going to be able to pull off on this pick. I know it can be a very big early game menace as well. Probably the first time this series that Perry's had what I would call the advantage in the early game up against Ben Guy. Let's see how it is going to end up playing out for them as we are getting on to the Rift for game number 3. G7 taking on Cincinnati. Fear for dominance in the Zon group. Game 3 starting right now.
And we will see once again the initial level 1 that we've seen from Fear in the previous 2 games. The first one, it wasn't to match success. In the second one, they got 2 flashes really early on. And on this third one, already moving as a unit, maybe trying to imitate some of the previous advantages they got in the previous 2 games.
That is definitely what they're going to be looking for. All grouping up in the ping brush, seeing if they have an opportunity to punish something. And got to give the shout out to Cincinnati Fear here. They've been that team showing the level 1 plays that we've been asking for. Been very calm early games throughout most of the ACL season. Cincinnati Fear ones to upset that. Tricky gets a nice early trade there onto Shochi. That's going to be a little bit of money off the first strike.
Yeah, not a bad initial trade. Is trying to put pressure onto Shochi and put yourself in a spot where you can try and be the carry player, because Tricky, we don't have much info on him. We kind of weren't expecting much, not gonna lie, going into this matchup. But so far, apart from the maybe dumpster that happened in the previous games, the first one was a really good game by him. Like, he performed really well in the arena, was able to put a lot of pressure onto Shochi, and if not for his flash down in the previous game, probably could have had a bit more leeway to try and play out the matchup. So kind of excited to see how it's going to go down in the mid lane between him and Shochi.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Tricky, a player that comes into this league as more of an unknown quantity, hasn't really played in the NACLQ level before, but has recently hit Challenger, and going to see what he's going to be able to do up against one of the best we have. They're going to dance forward. Manui taking a lot of damage here. Hope going to find the same on his side, but stepping forward, it's going to be Cincinnati Fear who end up losing the trade when all is said and done.
They were the ones looking for it, and at the end, it's not the best of initial trades for Minui. I think taking way too much damage initially there. Maybe they can try and turn it around now that they are going to hit the level 2 before them, but still such a bad trade, and they blew the Ignite way before, so it's not like this level 2 attempt is going to net them much more value.
For sure. Handshake was good, but the enhanced range on that Battle Dance is going to make a big difference for Phantom Star to be able to get out. As Perry
Tricky,
looking to make a play onto Tricky here at level 2. Does dodge into the wall, looking for the push, looking for the stun, but can't quite pull it off. And Tricky will successfully escape.
He was a 1 pixel away from being able to stun the Silas onto the turret. It could have been the initial first blood. Really nice setup there by both Shochi and Perry. It's unlucky that it doesn't come through, but I like that they are trying to once again put attention into the mid lane. Try and get Shochi as far ahead as you can so that you open up the space in the mid lane, and then you can begin roaming around as a duo really effectively. Perry, you're by yourself here. You have no flash.
Good read by Hope and Phantom Star for what's going on here. They figure, hey, Perry might be lurking around looking for a counter jungle. They find him, they take him down, and first blood goes to the G7 bot lane.
Yeah, and what was a really good initial read there, or initial play by Perry, turns now into disaster, because it's not only going to be the first blood going into the pockets of G7, it's also Hope that gets that first blood. It's the main person that you cannot allow to get ahead, and Shochi may end up getting collapse here. Actually, they don't see him backing, so it's going to be fine.
Very great start for G7, gifted to them a little bit there as they get a nice read on what Perry's going for, or maybe get a little lucky as they just happen to be backing away. But regardless of what the explanation is, they're going to find themselves ahead as a result, and coming back to lane now with the dagger with a cull on top of Manui. It's going to feel very good for Hope.
Exactly, now able to begin ramping up towards that first item, and importantly, it deters the initial plan that was going to play out for Fear down there in the bot side, and it's the Kalista Renata just weaning out the lane as best as they can, trying to force out as much as possible off of Hope and Phantom Star, and that way you just try and carry out through the initial advantage you were going to get. But because you now gave up a kill for the Saya, oh Hope, you're taking too much damage.
A stun back there found by Hope. Is Manui going to end up falling pretty low, but Bengai lurking around looking to try to make a play on this Viego. Manui going to back away underneath the turret. ZZ Legendary there to back him up, and it looks like Bengai gonna have to give up on this play, as Philip is having a great time in this top lane, continuing to harass Steel City Warrior, and has already built himself up about a wave and a half worth of a lead.
It's pretty much what we were kind of expecting as they re-engage, but it's under turret, Hopes are, the Phantoms are.
Good damage on to ZZ Legendary, but not quite able to find the snare. That means the kill will not end up coming through, but Hope playing very well with these feathers, continuing to harass out the opposing bot lane.
And it's looking like they're going to even get the first blade in their favor, already putting a lot of pressure there. Minui taking so much damage. He's not going to die, but this bot lane is not going at all like they were probably expecting. Minui's all the cleanse coming through.
Crucial cleanse there, but now here comes Perry going to dash right into Phantom Star, and nowhere left to go for this Rakan. He does end up dropping. Manui manages to pick up the kill, and now Hope going to be the next target. The bailout still on cooldown, but it's enough to make it a 2-for-1 in favor of Cincinnati Fear. Perry picks up the second kill, and that's a win all around.
And 2 kills for the side of Fear, not a bad trade at the end of the day. Getting a kill onto Minui, getting a kill onto Perry. Really nice to try and bounce back from that initial mistake. They do give up a kill for Hope, which is not the most ideal, but you need to get this sort of bounce backs into the game so that you can try and recover as much as possible and then turn around the game in your favor. Important though, I think Hope a bit of not misplaying there, but maybe not expecting the situation to go like that. Tricky.
Yeah, Shochi feeling very good about this trade, and there's nowhere for Tricky left to go. He would have had to flash away, but he doesn't have it, and he will drop the stolen away shockwave. Not going to be enough to bail him out. Shochi with a solo kill in mid lane.
Shochi showcasing what happened to him in the first game. Getting soul killed by Duriana happens to even the best of us, and Tricky suffering the same fate as Shochi in that first game. And this is why I don't understand still why they think, wait, we saw an equalizer up there in the top lane. It's just
yeah, it
damage.
looks like a little bit of a rumble fumble there from Philip. He doesn't manage to quite find Steel City Warrior with very many ticks, but just looking for that harass, looking to chunk him out. The team will secure the dragon.
They are able to get the first dragon. Once again, feels like pretty much the 3 games they've been able to secure the first dragon of the game. Really nice stat by Fear, and really nice dragon control so far. If they can turn that into an early soul, could be really, really good for them. But if not, that's still something to try and manage around. And then talking a bit about the top lane play, even though it didn't go well for Philip to try and secure the kill, he also actually flashed away, it seems. So maybe got locked down by the Nico, and the Viego was appearing, so he had to flash away immediately.
Yeah, now the wave pushing on into him. Bengai potentially looking for a little bit of a dive up here. Paying attention to bottom lane first, but there's going to be a flash in the maw, the follow of Chain CC. Here comes the Pop Blossom, and there's nowhere for Philip to go.
But
he's just
dead.
Burning down Bengai. One more auto will get the trade back for Steel City Warrior, but Philip comes away with the trade kill.
That's the amount of damage that an Ignite and just Rumble can make happen there. Perfect play there by Philip, getting back a 1-for-1 in that situation. And it's also the flash blown by Ben on the Viego. So that means that the advantage that they were able to kind of accrue onto the Rumble no longer going to be that prevalent.
Absolutely here. Great stuff there. Steel City Warrior going to equalize the CS, going to end up with the kill. So he definitely feels bailed out there, but Philip able to at least prevent what could have been a huge comeback by getting himself some kill gold as well. ZZ Legendary taken very low, just barely avoids getting snared up. One more feather would have done it, as Hope is successfully just pushing out this bottom lane once again. These two, as a duo, have done such a good job up against Manui and ZZ Legendary, and it's Kalista not having the early game dominance you'd hope for.
Yeah, the idea that they were having, it's not being present. Oh, Steel City Warrior probably going to be suffering the same fate that Viego suffered a couple of minutes ago, and it's going to be another kill for Philip. Pretty similar game plan to what we saw in the first game. Maybe not to the same level of dominance, but 2-1, really good start for Philip and Shochi.
Shochi a little bit deep here, gets the shockwave onto both, flashes away from the Heartbreaker, dodges out on the maw, but the abductee is going to land, and now that they're underneath the turret, can Shochi get away in time? Just barely dodges out, and Tricky, one more turret shot will get traded back. Shochi picks up the solo kill in the 1 versus 2.
Shochi able to outplay them, and crucially there, the slow from the W, stopping Tricky from being able to get out of turret range fast enough. That means that it's going to be another kill for the mid laner from Fear, and also putting a bit more pressure onto Hope now, because both mid lane and top lane are suffering so heavily for G7. Now your only hope is literally Hope.
Really, Shochi putting on a bit of a show there in the mid lane as he gets himself another one solo. Doesn't need any help from Perry, as Perry is looking to punish Hope here. Doesn't quite see the angle to charge him into the wall yet. And now here's the backup from Bengai and Phantom Star. Tricky's coming down here as well. G7 throwing down everything in the kitchen sink to try to turn around this play. Pulls in this side of Bengai. And now Manui going to get bailed out. Gets saved by ZZ Legendary. And Bengai's the only one to fall.
And they actually are able to escape. Everyone gets out of there alive from the side of Fear, and G7 losing another member. This game is not going at all how G7 probably wanted it to. And if this keeps up like that, it's going to be really, really difficult for Hope to try and carry this out. Another great play, another great answer from Fear, and they also keep on getting gold in the mid lane.
They definitely do. Fear doing very well in their solo lanes once again. That was crucial to their success in game number 2, and it remains true in game number 3. Developing large CS leads, picking up turret plates, showing dominance in these one-on-ones while trying their best to hold down the fort in the 2-on-2. The game plan continues to pay off.
Yeah, for as much as I think we can and we should hype up Tricky for his first game performance, the second and the third game haven't been his best at all, and Shochi really showcasing the difference between him and Tricky as much as possible. So much pressure for the mid lane. No Shochi, no flash.
Shochi left alone once again. The abduct is going to land at this chain CC. It's just too much. The shutdown goes over to Tricky, and Shochi finally gets punished.
And it took them so long, but finally they are able to punish Juliana with no flash, with not a lot of escape tools, finally end up getting the kill. And it's going to be a really nice amount of gold to go into Tricky because he needed it desperately to try and be closer to the Juliana, although Shochi kind of self-hitting himself in the foot by purchasing the crown instead of going for actual damage, but not the worst of all, honestly.
I think it makes sense into this composition, right? The Silas is going to be diving on you, but I speak too soon as Manui is getting brought in, going to have to flash back away in order to avoid the snare, interrupts the chain of CC, and now he's up pretty far. Bengai's going to flash in. Bengai's going to land the Spectral Maw, and Bengai's going to take down Manui. ZZ Legendary with the bailout, not going to be enough to protect his 80 carry, and Cincinnati Fear give up another one as the chase down from Bengai is not going to stop there. They're going to focus in on the ZZ Legendary. Can't quite get the knockup from that grand entrance, and Perry going to trade back on a Phantom Star, but Hope throwing through the feathers, can't get an angle for the pullback, is going to have to let these two go back. Now that's going to be a kill picked up for Fear in trade for a kill on a Phantom Star. Oh, but Shochi! I didn't think he had it in him, but he finds himself another solo kill. ZZ Legendary pushed back, going to go down as well. The kills keep on coming, TDS.
They want blood, they want to get kills this game, and they are getting it, both in the mid lane, both in the bot lane. Everyone is dying all around the map, and it's going to work out really, really, really well for a lot of the members. Tricky there. You have to expect the damage to come through. It's an Orianna. You played the champion in the previous games. You have to know that she can do that under your turret and end up paying the price with his life. Shochi keeps on getting so much gold in his favor, and another plate as well. Phantom Star probably not going to find much value.
That's the thing, is no matter how many plays they're making in the bottom lane, Shochi just continuing to get stronger and stronger. Bengai going to try to change that right here as he emerges from the shadows, but has a 3-man squad there, does Shochi. Going to keep them pushed back with the ball. We'll have Shockwave available in just a couple of seconds.
That Shockwave can try and lock down a kill. Steel City Warrior has to run away.
Going to be chased down. He's going to burn to Philip. Philip with another solo in the top lane.
The Swag Ignite just flashing, gets the Ignite down, gets the easy kill, and now collecting the Dragon as well. Philip was pretty much alone in an island for the whole duration of the game apart from that one gank, and after that, and it's been complete control over the Nico. Not much value found, but this champion, they prioritized the Nico, and they tried to play around the flex potential, but it's not working out at all for the side of Steel City Warrior.
Definitely has not been. They get themselves another onto the Rumble. These two mages combined together, they can wombo down a whole team fight. You let them. They're just continuing to get stronger and stronger. So another Shockwave going to be landed by Shochi here onto Tricky. Perry coming on in. They're going to throw down that hostile takeover, but it's not going to find its way onto anybody. The chain CC onto Tricky just barely flashes away, but Perry going to match it and going to take him down.
even with the flash away, even with no mana and Shochi, it was going to turn out like this, and it's another kill onto Tricky. Once again, not the best game, sadly, for him. Really nice setup, though, by the mid-jungle duel from Fear, and with the first turret gold going down in favor of Shochi, probably will be coming back with the Seraphine completed. Yep.
So what it's going to be looking like here. Stronger and stronger is Shochi. He's going to have the upgrade that Seraph's Embrace before too long. Over the wall, Philip still looking to see what he can steal away. An objective bounty is claimed to the bottom lane by G7 Hope. Been handedly winning this bottom lane alongside Phantom Star. They're going to look for a little bit more, but Manui out of the wall has plenty of damage. Still dish out, and there's going to be the back away from Hope, the blowing of the Feather Storm, and the blowing of the TP from Tricky. All in all, G7, they contribute a lot down there.
They committed quite a lot to try and save Hope or try and make the play work out on there, but they simply are lacking the damage. Like Hope, even with one item completed, is yet not at the point where he can hyper carry each of the fights by himself. Still going to take a bit of time. But looking at the bright side for G7, Hope got the first turret, down there in the bot lane, plus the bounty that was connected to that turret. He is 150 CS, so he's ahead of the Kalista, and he's collecting quite a good amount of gold based on everything that was left standing around the map. So I can see him being able to hyper carry, just if he can reach that point.
The other problem is the Wombo for G7 not really together yet, as that's a nice interrupt from Perry. Finds the Spectral Maw. This is what we were talking about, TDS, as there's nowhere for Ben Guy left to go. He flashes away, but he will get melted down by the Equalizer. Just a very small slot to slide through for Hope and Phantom Star, and Phantom Star is going to get caught by Manui while trying to get through it. 2 more kills to Cincinnati Fear.
They did everything in their power to try and escape that play, but at the end it's not working out, and Tricky, you're going to end up dying once again.
Yeah,
he's probably
he gets the gun into the wall this time. Revenge from the level 2 play. Finally finishes off the mid laner. The push is continuing in mid lane. Too many members of G7 have been forced too far away. They will be able to get themselves another turret, more gold, up to a 5k gold lead, gonna go up to 6k as Shochi finishes off another inner. And the dominance from Cincinnati Fear just spreading across the map. Now another interrupt from Perry. Phantom Star finally going to be able to dash back away. The Merc Treads reducing the duration of that grounded effect, but they're just losing their entire jungle here.
They are going to lose so much gold on there in the bot side. It's not only the turret, like you're mentioning, Gordo, it's also the jungle camps that are going to be lost out. Probably going to get this Raptors, which is quite nice for Pen, but everywhere else in the map, they are behind and losing out on everything. And Tricky, wasn't even able to mention this, just noticing now the CS deficit in the mid lane, but also the level deficit between them. And also Perry getting collapsed done.
Yeah, got his little Scuttle Crab stolen away there, as Philip is going to find himself another solo kill onto Steel City Warrior. And you want to talk about solo lanes that have been struggling. Steel City Warrior just finished his mythic item.
It's not easy being a solo laner this game for G7, really unluckily. Like, they have complete control of the map on the side.
Avert your eyes, ladies and gentlemen, as Shochi just whiffs a shockwave there. Not going to be able to take down Hope as a result, and now they might try to force a fight off of this. I mean, this is the best shot you're going to get if the mid laner is just going to throw his ultimate away right in front of you, but they haven't been able to find the engage, and the push is not stopping on the top side. There is a ticking clock on this play. If they're going to make it, they got to make it right now, as the Rift Herald is knocking on the doors in the top lane. Hostile takeover going to land onto 2. Manui puts a lot of spears into Perry, but Perry can shrug that off, no problem. No play to be found from G7.
It was a cute ultimate, but there were no ultimates, important ultimates on the side of G7 to try and collapse on it. If I'm not wrong, Biego ultimate was just coming off of cooldown. Rakan didn't have ultimate either, so it was really difficult to follow up on that. And even though Shochi commits a bit of a work cramp with that ultimate there, it's still not enough to actually go into the fight and try and finally find something. Hope has the damage. Oh, but he may be dead.
Equalizer, and Shochi there to follow up on it. Hope with nowhere left to go is gonna drop to Shochi, and that's the most important member of G7 taken off the board. They're gonna try to combo down Shochi, but they just don't have the damage. Steel City Warriors on 1 item. Ben Guy can't dish it out either. He's gonna drop, finally get Shochi Shochi when Tricky arrives to the play, and he throws down the stolen away equalizer, but it's not on top of enough members. Tricky's gonna go down. Steel City Warriors going to join him. It's the ace for Cincinnati Fear at the cost of only Shochi, and they are knocking on the base doors looking to close out this series.
Yeah, Shochi may end up dying, but the damage is done because they find multiple kills. They find the pushdown there in the bot lane, and since there's no way to carry, the only part. Oh no, Hope.
Oh, the bailout is going to tick in time. Philip will drop to the turret shots though, and the respawns are coming through. It's too early in the game to close it out here, TDS. And now what can Ben Guy get back on the other side? He wants Manui. Manui's going to flash away. The knockup is landed by Phantom Star, but the follow-up damage cannot be found, as here's going to be Fate's call back in for ZZ Legendary, looking for a target to knock up. But Tricky has arrived to the play, and they need to clean something up here for G7. ZZ Legendary is going to be the focus. He bails himself out, but he is going to drop one way or the other. And Manui now getting chased down. Tricky going to find him and pick up the shutdown for G7.
It was the flash used there by Tricky to try and lock down Minui there, but they get the kills. They get the resets for the Diego and a couple of shutdowns, and now control over Dragon as well, so could be a bounty potential for them. Although Ben, you're alone here, and there's not a lot that you can do to try and escape or fight.
Ooh, Perry looking for the combo, pulls him back in with a shockwave, but here on the back line, it's Steel City Warrior. He gets the knock up onto Shochi. The crown has expired, and Shochi's just getting melted by the entire G7 squad. Tricky has somehow managed to stay alive, and Perry's been locked down. It's another big shutdown going over to Ben Guy, and G7 are going to be able to lock themselves down. This Dragon with the objective bounty as well. Philip shows up to the party. He layers down that equalizer to dish out a little bit of damage, but he knows better than to keep running into this meat grinder. G7, they get the plays off, and they're starting to fight their way back into this one, TDS.
Exactly, just like that, Gordo. They get 5k. They are now only 5k gold, 4k gold behind of Fear. They were almost 10k before that play happened. So getting a huge amount of gold into multiple members, importantly into Tricky and into Ben. They were both members that were quite behind compared to their counterparts. So getting that amount of gold into their pockets, quite important, quite nice. And now Hope may have a bit more help in terms of trying to go for the team fights.
Spike down from Ben Guy on that Gromp as the group up around the Baron is starting to appear. Cincinnati Fear are starting it up. They're stacking spears into it from Manui, and the timer is on for G7 to try to look for a play. Shochi's crown is going to get popped. Keep an eye on that as the potential one shot onto Oriana is on the table once again. They're trying to sneak their way in through the bottom side, but they're just taking too long. The Baron is still getting stacked up, but they're actually taking forever to do this thing.
Shockwave.
Ben Guy falling down a little bit low. The Shockwave gets good damage onto Steel City and Phantom Star. Another ball onto Hope. Here's going to be the equalizer. Hope's got to throw out the Feather Storm. They're going to focus down onto Philip. Philip gets bailed out. He's going to be able to escape after killing Ben Guy. They will try to trade that one back. They throw down their own equalizer on the other side, but it's not going to find its target. Steel City Warrior getting desperate, gets the knockup onto Shochi, but the follow-up damage cannot present itself. The grand entrance from Phantom Star just to try to ensure that his teammate can escape and that the game doesn't end right here. Hope's got to get back, Hope's got to heal up, and Hope's got to try to find a way to pair up with Tricky and defend this base.
It's only 2 members alive. It's 5 members for Fear, and Shochi already pushing in.
Duck lands, Shochi's down.
It's 2 against 4. It's more doable. It's still difficult though.
Yeah, Tricky's gonna have to step up. He gets hit in by Perry. Perry's down. It's now all on Hope, but Minui is tanking up the tower. Philip's gonna be the next target. He takes down the last Nexus turret, but Ben Guy is able to reset and take down another member. He can try to chase down the rest now. He's got procs from that Essence Reaver to chase him down the rest of the way, or the Night Harvester rather. That's a triple kill to Ben Guy. G7 will not say die.
3 kills, 1 more shutdown, so at the very least fighting back as best as they can. It's still really difficult. They are way too far behind, and there's no Nexus turrets, Gordo. That means that anyone that leaves open any space in the base could end up turning into a victory for Fear. The game can be attempted to be turned around, but it's way too difficult. And a big showcase of why it's the previous Dragon fight. There was so much, and they took away the red buff from Hope. I don't understand that.
And that was the last turret. That was the last turret. It's gone. G7 have no more turrets on Summoner's Rift. They need this respawn on the bot lane inhibitor at an absolute minimum, and it is just so hard to fight your way back from here. I mean, I've heard of the odds shrinking when you start to lose all of your inhibitors, but how bad must your odds be with no Nexus turrets?
0.
Oh, the flash in Shochi, he finds Hope. Hope is too late on the Feather Storm, but Shochi's got to flash out one way or the other. Now going to be the pullback on through here is going to be that equalizer across the rest of the team. Hope has to flash backwards. The Fates call. It's found Steel City Warrior. He goes into the stasis to buy a little bit of time. Philip is now the target. Here's the Pop Blossom. It gets off in time. It finds Shochi and Philip. The follow-up damage cannot present itself. Minui now going to be the main target. He gets bailed out by the support, but he is going to drop. Hope picks up that kill. The stolen away Fates call. As Ben Guy is looking to reset across the rest of this fight. Phantom Star cannot fight any knockups. Tricky dives back into the back line. Looking to knock up onto Philip, but Perry has led the charge back into Hope. He gets him into that small piece of terrain. Tricky is going to drop as well. It's all on Ben Guy to try to reset across the rest of the fight, but Shochi gets bailed out again. The Renata revives 2 members in that fight, and it makes all the difference. At Cincinnati Fear, they take the ace for 2, and they're going to march in to take the Nexus. Cincinnati Fear winning this game and winning this series in a slightly tighter fashion than was expected.
And pretty much securing their spot at playoffs. That was such a chaotic game, much more chaotic than it needed to be for Fear in my eyes. They had complete control of it until it kind of was slipping, but then it kind of wasn't. So, weird game, but they won. That's what matters. They already win. That's it.
Woo! Much closer. Much closer than it was looking throughout a lot of that early game. Had some shades of game number 1 there. G7 putting up an excellent fight up against Cincinnati Fear, nearly fighting their way back with the Viego resets.
Yep.
But Bailout's imbalanced, man. It makes up so much of that last fight. They get so many bailouts out of crucial members, and it makes it too difficult for G7 to execute out and get their way out of there.
At the end, it works out, and I think huge props to how CC Legendary ends up playing that, because it was a difficult game, not gonna lie. You needed to try and make the snowball happen, and then you needed to try and make it so that the team fights weren't going to be as dangerous. A lot of that was helped by the fact that Shochi and Philip pretty much completely demolished their opposite laners, so it was really difficult to try and find the turnarounds. But in fights where the turnaround could have ended up happening and could have salvaged the game for G7, the bailouts came in clutch. Saving Minui in that play, saving Shochi in that play. Resets could have been amazing for the side of G7, and you have to give props for CC Legendary for how he played that.
Absolutely. And you see the fight back there from G7 looking pretty good between 20 and 22 minutes, but the fights are found once again by Cincinnati Fear, and it's all on Shochi and Philip once again. I got to give all the credit of the world to them. Perry finding some good engages in those fights as well. But the solo lane difference was what ended up making the difference in this series. Their ability to eke out leads for themselves, to dominate their opposition, is what has won them the series.
Exactly. And that's the kind of caliber we expect from these players, right? The level that we expect from these players is around this sort of a potential. And even though I think G7 did a really good job, this is why these players are playing in the NACL, pretty much. And hope we get to see more out of the side of G7. I have to shout him out once again. I think Hope played amazingly well this series, and it's an AD carry that it's looking really, really interesting the more we get to see from him.
Definitely is. We have got an interview coming up with Cincinnati Fear Shochi. We're going to throw it to a quick break while we get everything set up for that, but don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back as we talk to Shochi. Welcome back, everybody, to the Aegis Champions League, where we are joined by Shochi, who gave us this image to represent him. You know what, Shochi? Let's start off with that. What are we looking at here, my friend?
This is just a selfie I took this morning. I thought I looked pretty good in it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well,
Yep.
Congratulations on your win tonight, my man. This is going to take Cincinnati Fear up to 4-2. I want to know, like, were you guys starting to sweat a little bit in this series about not just this series itself, but about as we're looking towards ACL playoffs? Your group is starting to look really competitive with St. Clair and G7 and CCG Futures all fighting to try to make it up into that top 4. Is that something that was on your mind during this series, or do you guys think you're for sure going to make it one way or the other?
Well, I know all of us think like we're gonna make it no matter what, but after our loss last week, we were like, okay, maybe it's time to focus up a little bit. And then after we came off that loss, and then we lost game 1 today, I was like, okay, guys, that's really enough. That's enough tomfoolery. So yeah, after we locked in, the games look pretty clean. So I'm not really too worried about our future.
Good stuff.
And speaking about that first game particularly, because it was looking good until it wasn't. You got solo killed, then you kind of died once again. And I'm kind of curious, what was the plan going into that game with the K'Sante? Do you think it's first of all, do you think K'Sante is a really, really strong mid lane champ? I'm not going to say champ, I'm going to focus mid lane wise. And then what was the plan in the game, and why did it fail so miserably?
Okay. So basically, we had to use Philip as like our emergency sub, so we lost 2 bans. So that I mean, going into draft, like we were kind of on the back foot already. And then as draft was starting, Philip was finishing up his ranked TFT game. So our draft coach Manui was like, okay, let's pick K'Sante because it's super broken. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can put it mid, but like it should be flex top, right? But
Yep.
one thing led to another. Didn't really want to flex it top, so I took it into Oriana, which I'd say is like a fine matchup. I did get solo killed. It was super close. I had my biscuits going. It was like down to the wire on who would win that one. But yeah, playing K'Sante versus Jinx, Milio, Oriana 4 items is pretty hard. But like you said, it was going well, and we shouldn't have let him got to that spot. Basically, I kind of inted at like 22 minutes. I went to ult the Jinx. I got her flash. Like, that's cool. But then I kind of ulted Maokai, and then everyone died, and then they got Baron. And then the game's just hard after that. But yeah, I think the pick is good, especially versus like melee champs. But if you're a better K'Sante than I am, you can still play it versus mages as well.
All right, that's the requirement. We've heard it here first.
Yeah.
Kind of curious about Oriana's role in this series in particular, as it was super high prio in game 1 and 2, G7 locking it in their first rotation, both of the first 2 games, and then kind of drops down to the second round in game number 3. What do you feel like really drove that? Was it like something specific about the picks, or you know they swapped over to Nico and you didn't feel like you had a need to lock it in at that stage?
Hello? I think my internet just cut out.
Oh, all right. I'll round it again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. My internet
All
just
right.
cut out for like
Wanted
5
to ask
seconds.
about Oriana in this series.
Okay.
Yeah, just because it was super high prio the first couple of picks, the first couple of games, G7 taking it in their first rotation, but then it dropped down to round 2 in game number 3 where you ended up picking it up. Do you feel like you just didn't, you guys don't prio the pick that highly, or you just think you didn't need it into the Nico? Just curious what the logic is there.
I think the first 2 games, Jinx is what we put higher power on after we saw what it did game 1, and like I had enough picks into Orianna where I felt comfortable letting it go into the second phase, and it was basically just a combination of that and like wanting to get a good bot pairing, because obviously like if you pick one of your bot laners and you don't pick the other one in the same phase, then they can ban out the really good pairings for that. So it was just a combination of those things.
Yeah, I think that's fair, bro. Especially with the current state of Orianna, I feel like you're fine giving it up. Although I really like your counter into it with the 6. I feel like underappreciated champions.
Yeah.
6, one of them, really nice to try and set up. Works out as well that you have level 1 advantage with no flash on the Orianna.
Yeah,
that also helps quite a lot.
That was good.
Try and play it, but
was
ends up
good for
working out in
ZZ.
general.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious, moving away from the series, just quickly moving away from the series, because you guys are obviously not in the best spot in terms of standings now. With this victory, you kind of secure, or at the very least are in the best possible way to secure playoffs. But you're more than likely going to be facing one of the top teams in the other groups. Do you think there's any team that you want to avoid at any costs from the other groups, looking potentially into playoffs, and anyone you want to shit talk just in case we have some clips for future playoffs matchups, just in case?
I don't really know any people I would like to talk down on, but I think we're not really scared about like seeding or whatnot, because our goal is to win it all. So you'd have to play like quote unquote the best teams anyway. But I feel like a fun / interesting / competitive matchup would be versus Peach Cats. I think like everyone on that team's really good. Same with Trevor's team, the Trevor, Wixie, Draco, or not Draco, Surdy team.
Oh, that's Team Fish Taco. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
okay, Team
Trevor, that's
Fish
the
Taco,
Trevor,
yeah.
Meech, Young, Winnie, Surdy.
Oh yeah, not Wixie. Wixie's on Peach Cats, yeah. Yeah, I think Team Fish Taco and Peach Cats are the ones I'm looking out for, but we should, if we're on our game, we should be able to take it.
All right, looking forward to it. Hoping to see you guys again in playoffs. Before we close out for the night, want to give the last word to you, Shochi. Anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to say to those still tuned in?
Sure. I'll first and foremost say thank you to my girlfriend for always supporting me. Shout out my teammates, all my friends. Today's series was really fun. We had the emergency sub Philip, who like is really rowdy. I'm sure if you follow Cincinnati Fear, you know how rowdy Philip can get, and he definitely brought that energy to today's games. And yeah, thanks to everyone who supports me.
Good stuff. Thank you for joining us here at Shochi, and thank you to everybody at home for tuning on in today. That's going to do it for the ACL this week, but stay tuned to the Aegis channel. We'll have more Aegis leagues throughout the week, and we'll be back for the final week of the ACL regular season at this same time, same place next week. But until then, thank you guys for tuning on in. Thank you from myself, from TDS, from Caddy on Production, from Coachify, and from everybody here at Aegis. We will see you next time.